Chapter 153. Wheeze wheeze, Hinata. Get up. Hinata. In such a dark and damp place like the cave, Hinata was woken up by Kakashi in a daze after sleeping for less than 3 hours. Rubbing his eyes, Hinata groaned and asked, "What time is it?" "It's almost dawn. If you don't get up, the sun will be shining on your butt." After resting for a while, Hinata felt that his soul had returned to its original position, and he opened his eyes and glanced at Kakashi. In the dark cave, Kakashi stood in the shadows, and Hinata vaguely saw a mischievous smile flash through Kakashi's only exposed right eye. Phew, Hinata exhaled softly and adjusted his state of mind. He was still in the middle of a mission, and now was not the time to fall out with Kakashi. Naruto had already returned with water, and Hinata simply washed up. Kakashi squatted beside Hinata and said mischievously, "Hinata, it's time for breakfast." Hinata. Hinata took out a scroll from his backpack with an aggrieved expression. He couldn't not eat, but once the seal was unlocked, Kakashi, this shameless guy, wouldn't know what it meant to be polite. After eating breakfast with a sullen heart, Hinata finally learned a real skill from Kakashi. Shameless. A shameless person is invincible. Kakashi had completely understood the true meaning of this sentence. Let's go. After packing up, Kakashi led Hinata and Naruto into the territory of the country of River. Kakashi seemed to have a goal long ago, and he didn't stop at all along the way, and flew towards a certain place in the country of River. As for the plan to let Naruto use transformation jutsu and clone jutsu to disguise as a team, it was also rejected by Kakashi. Although a detailed plan had been made yesterday, it was only a part of the plan. Ninjas have to learn to deceive people, and Kakashi's real plan may not even be clear to Akai and Maki. It's not that Kakashi doesn't trust them, but for ninjas, a bug, a mouse, or a bird can be used to eavesdrop on information. Maybe an inconspicuous little bug at your feet is a spy sent by the enemy. Danzo once tried to win over Kakashi, so Kakashi has a certain understanding of Danzo. Kakashi, as the captain of this escort team, the real battle plan, as long as he knows it in his heart. In order to deceive the enemy, Kakashi can use a fake plan to deceive his teammates. This is a real ninja war, full of deceit and lies. Hinata soon found that Kakashi's goal was not the place they agreed on yesterday, and the route he took was completely different from yesterday's plan. Kakashi-sensei. Shoo! Kakashi made a silent gesture, and then made a gesture, indicating Hinata to use Byakugan. Byakugan. Hinata investigated around. Even the ground and the sky didn't escape. Hinata shook his head slightly, indicating that he didn't find any trace of chakra. Kakashi didn't dare to be careless and looked up at the sky. Hinata followed Kakashi's gaze and saw an inconspicuous bird hovering in the air. But Hinata just saw this bird. It was just an ordinary bird, and there was no chakra reaction. Is it the Yamanaka clan? Only the Yamanaka clan's special secret technique can transfer the soul to a bird without chakra to investigate the enemy. The bird circled around in the air for a while before flying away in a wobbly manner. Kakashi saw this and breathed a sigh of relief. When a ninja performs a mission outside, especially a mission like this that involves other ninja villages, even the most ordinary small animal can't be trusted. Hinata nodded with a dignified face. Kakashi made him nervous. Naruto scratched his head and said, "Is there no enemy nearby now?" Kakashi said, "There should be no more." After that, Kakashi took out the map from the ninja bag, and without explaining anything, he took out a pen and drew a circle on the map, and said lightly, "This is the scope of our investigation today." Hinata felt that the scope of the investigation is not too big, and asked, "Kakashi-sensei, will there be people living in this area?" Kakashi shook his head and said softly, "No. Although the country of Kawanoku is only a small country, but if civilians are accidentally injured because of a ninja fight, we will also have some trouble. After all, it is a peaceful time, and if ninjas accidentally hurt civilians, the village will have to make an attitude." Hinata felt that the investigation task is really not suitable for him. Although he has the Byakugan, the enemy also seems to be very cunning. Looking at Kakashi, Hinata tentatively asked, "Kakashi-sensei, why don't I summon Nine Tails and let Nine Tails use Bijudama to clean the ground? As long as we use Bijudama to bombard this area, No matter how many enemies there are, they will all die. Kakashi. Why is your first idea to use Bijidama to clean the ground? Why are you so good? There should be a more suitable way. For example, let me try Ninetales chakra? Kakashi, who has been lacking mana for decades, has an inexplicable obsession with Ninetales chakra. No. Kakashi vetoed. In this way, we will cause diplomatic trouble for Shinobu. The country of fire and the country of Kawanoku are allies. And because of our actions, we can't cause discord between the two countries. Hinata curled his lips and said weakly, "Oh, I know." Kakashi calmly said, "Although you and Niji have Byakugan in the team, but from the moment we left the village, we have been targeted. This is the reason why I didn't let Naruto use clone jutsu." Hinata heard this and said gloomily, "Since Kakashi-sensei already knew, then why didn't you say it from the beginning?" Kakashi explained, "Because it's useless. We didn't have time to hide our tracks along the way, and the enemy will find out sooner or later. What we need to do now is to test whether the enemy is one group or two groups of people from different factions." Hinata asked, "And then destroy one of the groups?" Kakashi was a little tired, but he still nodded. "If it's possible." Kakashi then called out, "Let's go." Just a few miles behind Hinata, Naruto, and Kakashi, Mountain Breeze opened his eyes and said to Root, "I've been targeted, and I have no choice but to retreat." "Root, how's the situation on your side?" In Root's knowledge, the most dangerous people in the team escorting my love were Hinata and Naruto. If the two of them worked together, they could increase the team's combat strength in an instant. And at the crucial moment, they could even let Naruto transform into a tailed beast. Now that Naruto and Hinata had left under Kakashi's lead, this was the perfect opportunity to assassinate my love. The oily woman didn't answer immediately. After waiting for a while, a small bug flew back. "They have already gone deeper, let's move." Chapter 154. Good. Yamaf responded and ordered the Root ninjas. "Let's go back and carry out the highest mission of the leader." Yes. In fact, from last night until now, Root had many opportunities to assassinate my love. However, they weren't sure if Kakashi really split up or if he was just pretending to deceive them. It wasn't until Yamaf and Aburame confirmed that Kakashi really went deep into the land of Kawa that they dared to go back and assassinate my love. There's no other way. Hinata and Naruto joining forces is too dangerous. It's not a power that ordinary ninjas can compete with. Stop. After running for a few miles, Kakashi suddenly shouted. Hinata and Naruto stopped at the same time. Kakashi said in a deep voice, "Let's go back." Hinata. Kakashi ignored Hinata's doubts and ran back without stopping. Hinata and Naruto had no choice but to follow. Naruto asked with a confused expression, "Kakashi-sensei, what are we doing?" Kakashi explained, "Going back to support Akai and the others. In addition, we can't go back the way we came, we may have to take a little detour, so we have to speed up." Hinata was a little puzzled at first, but when he heard Kakashi's words, he instantly figured out Kakashi's plan. If it's really like what Kakashi said, and the enemies are ninjas from two different camps, then the most dangerous situation is to let the two groups of ninjas gather together. In the chaos, no one can guarantee that my love won't have an accident. The purpose of Kakashi's team is not really to split up, but to attract one of the enemies from the dark. Since Kakashi invited Akai and Marky to discuss the plan last night, Kakashi has already been making arrangements. Kakashi's mouth is full of lies. From the beginning to the present, he has been deceiving people. Not only did he deceive the enemy, but he also deceived Hinata and Naruto. Until the enemies behind them are completely sure that Kakashi is really deep in the land of Kawa, they will carry out the assassination. At this time, Kakashi returned to support Akai. Hinata is now a salted fish that can only shout 666. He can only silently praise Kakashi in his heart. What a deep trap. Maybe the enemy didn't believe that Kakashi would really split up, but Kakashi said several fake plans in a row. In the end, they still believed it. Now the enemy turned from the dark to the light, but Kakashi, Hinata, and Naruto turned from the light to the dark, becoming the key to turning the situation around. Even if the enemy didn't fall into the trap, Kakashi returning to meet up with Akai and the others is just wasting some time. Hinata's eyes are full of worship. He turned to Kakashi and sincerely praised. Kakashi-sensei, you are so amazing. Kakashi's expression is indifferent, he said softly. The more you experience, the more you understand. After saying this, Kakashi turned to Hinata and Naruto. He slowly said, I hope you will never understand this. Hinata nodded and said, Since Kakashi-sensei doesn't want me to understand, then I won't understand. Kakashi, Naruto said with a look of confusion. Kakashi-sensei, what are you talking about? Kakashi is a little desperate. These two disciples of his were both indescribable trash. Hinata is still okay. Although he is usually a little unreliable, his IQ is still there. But Naruto is really stupid. Fourth generation Naruto is such a smart person. Did he have a genetic mutation? Kakashi said seriously. Alright, let's stop talking nonsense. We have to hurry back to support Akai and the others. Hinata suggested. Why don't we use Nine-Tails Chakra? Nine-Tails Chakra can improve all aspects. Our speed will also increase by a lot. Naruto agreed. I have no problem. Kakashi glanced at Naruto and said indifferently. Naruto, you are the biggest problem now. Hinata and I can use Nine-Tails Chakra. What about you? Naruto. Naruto was depressed when he heard this. I must be a fake Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Aburame Takeuchi carried Yamafeng on her back and quickly walked through the forest with a group of root ninjas. After a long time, Yamafeng woke up and said indifferently, Put me down. Yamafeng won't easily believe Kakashi's nonsense. He also left a trap on the way, using the heart puppet curse technique, to transfer his soul into a puppet. As long as Kakashi and the others step into the trap, they will immediately fall into it. According to Yamafeng's calculation, if Kakashi really wants to turn back, then he should have already fallen into the trap. Since the trap hasn't been activated yet, it means that Kakashi has really split up. Aburame Takeuchi put down Yamafeng and said indifferently, Kakashi is also a veteran jonin, he should know what splitting up means. The mission this time could basically be considered as a semi-open game. Almost all parties have already expected the opponent's actions. Inoki knows that Danzo wants to kill with a borrowed knife, and he even wants to kill the rock ninjas. Danzo also knows that Inoki wants to kill Shinobu and my love. Tsunade also knows that Danzo will definitely take action. As for what Danzo will do, Tsunade also has some guesses. Although it's a half-card game, Tsunade, Danzo, and Inoki, these big shots, won't participate in it personally. The real participants are Kakashi, Kaiban, my love, Root, and the rock ninjas. As for who would be able to outplay who, that would depend on who had a deeper set of tricks. Yamafeng analyzed. Maybe Kakashi believes in Akai. After all, Akai still has that trick. Aburame Root didn't speak. If you don't count Hinata and Naruto, Akai is indeed the most difficult one to deal with. During the Third Shinobi World War, Akai and his teammates were surrounded by the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist. Shinobu Kiba, Mato Dai, rescued them alone and killed the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist. Akai inherited everything from Mato Dai, and is now the real ace of Shinobu. Yamafeng continued. So we must act quickly. I will delay Akai, the others are responsible for blocking the rest. Root, you use that trick to quickly kill my love. Aburame Root said lightly. Got it. Yamafeng didn't speak. Although Akai is very difficult to deal with, Akai doesn't know much about Root, nor does he know Yamafeng and Aburame's secret technique. Because of this, Akai won't open the Hashiman Tanku in the beginning. As long as they act fast enough, it won't be difficult to kill my love with Aburame's secret technique. As for my love's sand, Yamafeng turned to look at a Root ninja and ordered. Bluebird, you are responsible for supporting Root. Give him a chance to get close to my love. Yes. Chapter 155. A few hours ago, after having breakfast with my love's group, they set off from the cave. According to the previous agreement with Kakashi, they changed the route to the land of rivers. Along the way, Marky's brows were locked together. He always felt that Kakashi's arrangement was somewhat inappropriate. During the time when he was a prisoner of Shinobu, Maki already learned about Naruto and Hinata from my love and Hanbao. Naruto is the Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails of Shinobu, but he can't control the power of the Nine Tails yet. And Hinata is the heir of the Hyuga main clan, and has far more eye power than other clansmen. Through the power of the Byakugan, Hinata can see the Nine Tails in Naruto's body, and made a certain agreement with the Nine Tails that he can use the chakra of the Nine Tails to fight. My love was defeated by the power of the Nine Tails before. At the beginning, although Maki knew that this trip was dangerous, he wasn't too worried. Maki was very clear about the strength of Kakashi and Akai. If Hinata and Naruto cooperate, the general lineup won't be able to take down this escort team. And Maki himself is not weak. My love is the strongest weapon of the Sand-Hidden Village. But last night, Kakashi proposed a plan to split up. The reason is that this time the enemy is likely to be from the Rock-Hidden Village. Maki believed in this judgment, but he didn't agree with the plan of splitting up. If everyone gets together, they have enough strength to fight against any enemy. But once they split up, with only Akai's group and the Sand-Hidden Village's 4 people, their combat power will be greatly reduced. However, Kakashi insisted on splitting up, and Akai also supported Kakashi brainlessly. 2-1, Maki could only agree in the end. However, along the way, Maki felt more and more uneasy. On the other hand, Akai didn't seem to care. He believed in Kakashi's judgment and his own strength. Since Kakashi wanted to split up, then Kakashi must have his own reasons. Akai didn't need to know the reason behind Kakashi's decision. He only needed to know that it was Kakashi's decision. Along the way, Ningji would activate his supercilious eyes every once in a while to investigate the nearby situation. Now that several hours had passed, it was still calm and tranquil. Maki suddenly turned to look at Akai and asked with a frown, "What's your plan?" Akai's face was full of confusion. "Didn't we agree to split up?" The corner of Maki's eyes twitched as he asked, "What else?" Akai bared his teeth and gave Maki a thumbs up. "Don't worry. Since we've accepted the mission, we'll definitely protect your safety. This is youth. Youth is always accompanied by uncertainty and doubt, but it's also filled with fighting spirit and hope." Maki. There was no way to continue this conversation. Supercilious eyes. Ningji roared and activated his supercilious eyes again. There are enemies approaching us quickly. There's a total of 22 of them. One of them has a very strange body, as if he's been poisoned. Akai said solemnly. Looks like the enemies have discovered us. Youth is always faced with many challenges. Shaoli, let's face these challenges with a fighting attitude. Shaoli's eyes burned with excitement. Teacher Akai, you're right. Sand Hideouts Group. Maki gritted his teeth and said, "Sure enough, there's a problem. Hey, Shinobu's Jonin, what's your plan?" Akai smiled confidently. "The plan is to fight." Maki snorted. There was no plan at all. Shinobu's Jonin was simply too reckless. "Protect my love." Maki looked back at Kankuro and Hanbao with a complicated and firm look in his eyes. Kankuro and Hanbao nodded at the same time. Maki was ready to die in order to protect my love. And the mission of Kankuro and Hanbao was to bring my love safely back to the Sand-Hidden Village. My love's eyes were warm. He once deeply envied Naruto for having so many companions. He could even lend the power of the monster in his body to his companions. My love thought that she was alone. But now, my love found that she was never alone. There were also companions around her that she could entrust her life to. My love clenched her fists. If Naruto was the light that dispelled the darkness in my love's heart, then Hanbao, Kankuro, and Maki magnified this light infinitely, illuminating the whole heart of my love. Niji's face was also very dignified. He turned to Akai and said, "Akai-sensei, the number of enemies is very large." Akai nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, "Don't worry, leave it to me." Shaoli, Niji, Tion, you guys be careful. Akai was able to become a Jonin, not only because of his strength. If the quality of a ninja is not up to standard, no matter how strong Akai is, the village will not promote him to a Jonin. Akai turned to look at Niji and gave him a thumbs up. "Niji, I learned something from your sister." "Niji, is there really something worth learning from Hinata?" The speed of the ninjas was extremely fast. The two teams quickly approached each other, and in a short moment, both sides appeared in each other's field of vision. 22 root ninjas were wearing black clothes and masks. It was impossible to tell which ninja village they were from just by their clothes. Yamafeng's eyes were fixed on Akai. The task that Yamafeng set for himself was to delay Akai and let Aburame's root quickly kill my love. Aburame's root technique is very strange. As long as she touches the opponent's body, she can immediately take the opponent's life. The fatal time is very short, just a short moment is enough. Yamafeng believes that in such a short time, Akai will never open the Hashiman Tanku. Because ninja battles are first to test each other. After testing the opponent's trump card, they will make the final move. Without knowing the opponent's information, no ninja will be stupid enough to expose their trump card. Thinking of this, Yamafeng and Aburame's root looked at each other. They must end this quickly. The two teams quickly approached each other. 100 meters. 50 meters. 30 meters, Akai suddenly clenched his fists and shouted, Hashiman Tanku, 6th gate. Gate of view, open. Akai's figure suddenly accelerated and rushed to the front of the team in an instant. His whole body seemed to be stagnant in the air. Morning Peacock. Akai's fists quickly waved. The high-speed fist produced friction with the air and ignited a hot flame. The fist hit the air, creating a strong shock wave, carrying the destructive power of the flame, like a peacock spreading its tail, bombarding the opponent. Shan Fengfeng was dumbfounded. What happened to testing each other? Are you really a ninja or not? You still don't know our information yet. Under such circumstances, shouldn't they test each other out first? Why did you start with such a big move? Niji covered his face. He finally knew what move Akai and Hinata learned. King Bomb Face. Chapter 156. Akai, I'm the host so I'll go first. Yamafeng Aburame, good. Akai, King Bomb. What the hell? Yamafeng shouted. Get out of the way. As soon as he finished speaking, Windstorm stepped on a tree trunk and retreated, trying to avoid Morning Peacock's attack range. But how could he make it in time? How fast was Asahi Peacock's attack? Every fireball was Akai's full blow, and the dense fireballs were like a peacock spreading its tail. Boom 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 boom. Fireballs fell from the sky and smashed into the ground, causing the earth to rumble and dust to rise. Countless giant trees and rocks were smashed into pieces. This was not an ordinary fireball, but a flame caused by the high-speed friction between the fist and the air. What carried the flame to attack the enemy was not an ordinary ninjutsu, but a shock wave formed by the fist hitting the air. If one was hit by Akai's attack from a distance, not many people in the ninja world could withstand it. But if this attack was used as a long-range attack, its power would be weakened a lot. A few muffled groans came from the smoke. Niji was stunned and murmured, "Is this Akai-sensei's true strength?" Niji, Xiaoli and Tian also saw Akai's full power for the first time. In the past, their team only carried out D-level or C-level missions, so Akai didn't have much use. As for the collapse of Shinobu's plan, Akai didn't use the Hashiman Tanku. This was also the first time Akai showed his strength in front of his disciples. Xiaoli looked at Akai's back and felt that his back was simply handsome, and his whole body was full of youthful aura. Tian was also shocked. Akai-sensei, who was like a fool and had no sense of beauty, actually hid such a powerful and beautiful trick. Niji glanced at the smoke and shouted, "Only half of the people are seriously injured. Akai-sensei, be careful." Akai's attack had almost crippled half of the root team, and the rest were all injured. Akai landed on the tree trunk. After hearing Ningji's words, he smiled faintly and said, "Is that so? Looks like I haven't grasped the true essence of this move yet." Whoosh whoosh whoosh, several figures jumped out of the smoke. Kaze Yamanaka was still in the air. His hands made a strange gesture towards Akai. Niji shouted, "This person's chakra is abnormal. Teacher Akai, be careful." Got it. Akai nodded and dodged several times to avoid Windstorm's line of sight. He shouted, 8 inner hidden gates. 7th gate. Gate of Wonder. Open." Akai's body began to emit blue steam, and his face turned serious. He looked at the root members calmly, and made a strange seal with his hands. Cold sweat trickled down Shan Fengfeng's back. "This is," without hesitation, Shan Fengfeng roared, "retreat." Root ninjas have always been known for not being afraid of death. Completing the task given to them by their leader is the only value of their existence. But not being afraid of death is not the same as actively seeking death. At this time, if they fight Akai head-on, they will be the unlucky ones. The opportunity to complete the task will appear again, but they only have one life. And the task given to them by Danzo is not just to assassinate my love. Danzo wants either my love or the rock to die, not both sides to die in the hands of Shinobu. It's just that the importance of my love is higher than the importance of the rock. After all, the sand is already very weak. Pick the soft persimmon and pinch it. If you can't pinch the soft persimmon, then pinch the hard persimmon a little bit. Several root ninjas who could still move picked up the seriously injured ones and quickly retreated without looking back. "Who dash?" Akai whispered and closed the Hashiman Tanku. He only felt a sharp pain all over his body. His footsteps were weak, and he couldn't use any strength. "Akai-sensei." Ningji and Shaoli stepped forward to support Akai, and Jin Tian complained behind them. "Akai-sensei, you are too reckless. What if the enemy turns back now?" Ha ha ha. Akai laughed foolishly. He only felt that this kind of fighting style was too cool, but it didn't seem to be suitable for him. With Akai's current strength, even if he opens the 6th gate, it won't cause too much of a burden to his body. But the 7th gate is different. After opening the 7th gate, Akai will have a long period of weakness. "What?" Ningji's face suddenly changed and he exclaimed, "Someone is coming." Marky's face became even more ugly. When he saw Akai repelling the enemy, he was a little glad that he didn't have to fight to the death. But now the enemy is coming back. In the whole team, there are only 2 jonins, he and Akai. But looking at Akai's current appearance, it is obvious that he is unable to fight anymore. With only him and a group of newbies, how can they stop those enemies? There are 3 people. Ningji seemed to see something, and his face eased a lot, and he said in a relaxed tone, "It's Kakashi-sensei and the others." Marky was taken aback when he heard this, and he finally understood Kakashi's plan. First, they will split up and lure out the enemy hiding in the dark, and then turn around to launch a counterattack. Turning passive into active, there is no doubt that Kakashi's plan succeeded. Akai and Marky just delayed the enemy for a moment, and they can wait for Kakashi's support. But Marky couldn't help but look at Akai a few more times. How did this person become a jonin? Not only is he a jonin, but he can also lead a team? After following Kakashi for several hours, Hinata finally saw Akai and the others in the Byakugan's line of sight. In addition, Hinata also saw the miserable situation in the forest. Too miserable. Isn't this destroying the greenery? Setting fire to the mountain and sitting in prison. If this was in Hinata's previous life, Akai would have no future. Kai. Kakashi jumped to Akai's side and asked with a face full of concern, "Are you okay?" Akai pushed away Ningji and Shaoli who were supporting him and laughed. "How can I not be okay? Kakashi, do you want to start our 67th duel immediately?" As soon as his voice fell, Akai lost his balance and almost fell to the ground. Kakashi said in a deep voice, "Akai, you are too reckless." Hinata landed beside Kakashi, raised his head and asked, "Kakashi-sensei, should we continue to chase?" Kakashi thought for a moment and shook his head. "Let's focus on the mission first. The enemy shouldn't follow us anymore. Even if they do, they won't have a chance to attack again." Marky stepped forward and said, "Kakashi, if you have any plans next time, please let us know in advance." Kakashi turned to look at Marky and said lightly, "It's not that I don't want to tell you the real plan, but we have been under the enemy's surveillance. Once I tell you the real plan, the enemy will immediately use it." Hinata stretched and snorted. "That's right. Even a chunin like me understands this." Hinata glanced at Baki, shook her head, and said, "You're such a person. You have too many advantages, but there are 2 aspects that are not very good." Marky asked subconsciously, "What 2 aspects?" Hinata concluded, "Well, this is not good, that is not good." Hinata was now worshipping Kakashi, and decided to be Kakashi's fan for a day. Umph. Maki had already lost to Kakashi in terms of appearance. Chapter 157. Considering that Akai's current state was not suitable for battle, Kakashi looked around at everyone and said lightly, "We'll rest here for a day and set off tomorrow morning." Root was an expected enemy, but if there were any more enemies, they would not be as easy to deal with as Root. No need. No need. Hinata activated Byakugan and pulled Naruto with one hand and Akai with the other. Ninetales' chakra overpowered Akai and Akai immediately revived on the spot. Hey. Yeah. Akai made a few punching motions in succession and bounced a few times. His face was full of disbelief. The next moment, Akai and Kakashi stared at Naruto at the same time. This was truly a treasure. Kakashi, who was always lacking in mana, and Guy, who was half crippled when he used his big move, wished that they could be like Hinata and use their big move as a normal attack. In the past, they could only dream and fantasize about it occasionally. But now, their dreams had come true. How strong was Ninetales' chakra's recovery ability? In the original work, Naruto's chest was pierced by Sasuke's Chidori, and was healed by Ninetales' chakra in the blink of an eye. Compared to this almost fatal injury, opening 7 gates was nothing. Naruto hugged his chest and kept retreating, his face full of vigilance. "What are you guys trying to do?" Kakashi retracted his gaze, glanced at Maki and said faintly, "Since Guy is fine, let's set off now." Kakashi could not help but look at Naruto a few more times. Although he did not want to admit it, Kakashi really could not wait to meet the enemy. Then he would use Ninetales' chakra to kill everyone. Raikiri. 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 If he missed this opportunity, he didn't know how long he would have to wait for the next one. Maki was not as happy as Shinobu. What the hell is Shinobu's Ninetales Jinchuriki? Why can't the Jinchuriki himself use the power of the Ninetales, but others can? Could it be that this kid isn't the real Ninetales Jinchuriki at all, but is just a cover used to attract firepower? In fact, the real Ninetales Jinchuriki of Shinobu is the white-eyed girl named Hinata. But my love did feel a similar aura from Naruto. No matter what the truth was, there was one thing that Maki could not deny. Shinobu already has the perfect Ninetales Jinchuriki. Whether it is borrowed or not, the power of the Ninetales completely belongs to Shinobu. Maki also felt a little lucky. Fortunately, this Hinata was not born during the Shinobi World War. Otherwise, Shinobu might have beaten the other major ninja villages. And the Sand Village. Maki's eyes flashed with a trace of helplessness. Not enough time. He heard that the Sand Village can't even choose the next Kazekage. Although the elders have recommended a few people, no one can convince the masses. Even the mainstay of the village is inferior to Shinobu. Now that both Tsunade and Jiraiya have returned to Shinobu, from the overall point of view, Shinobu's strength is now a bit stronger than before Shinobu's collapse plan. Although every ninja in Shinobu is busy right now, even if the Sand Village wanted to be busy, they don't have so many tasks to do. Shinobu's collapse plan was fought on Shinobu's home ground. Even if the Sand Village and Shinobu joined forces, the number of ninjas was far less than Shinobu. But what about Shinobu? In this battle, Sand Hidden Village and Otogekure joined forces and became famous in the Shinobi world. It won great prestige for the village and countless missions. Damn Orochimaru. The Sand Village joined forces with Orochimaru this time. Not only did they lose a large number of elite ninjas, but they also carried the stigma of violating the covenant. My love was also captured by Shinobu, and now they have to compensate Shinobu with a large amount of war compensation. The Sand Village lost their reputation, lost their benefits, lost countless elite ninjas, but in the end, they didn't get anything. But what about Shinobu? Shinobu was prepared from the beginning. The Sand Village's ninjas just attacked Shinobu's hinterland. They were surrounded by Shinobu's ninjas. On the surface, Shinobu suffered grievances and won the sympathy of the community. But in fact, Shinobu won the war, won reputation, and won benefits. The Sand Village, which lost a lot of strength, had to change from being Shinobu's ally to being Shinobu's subordinate. And all of this was Danzo's fault. Maki looked at the Shinobu's ninjas around him. Of the 7 people in the 2 teams, the most normal ninjas were Niji and Tian, but these 2 were the weakest among all of them. On the contrary, the few people who looked like their heads had been caught by a door were very strong. When Marky was captured by Shinobu, he also heard rumors about Tsunade's gambling and Jiraiya's lecherous nature. But on his side, well, my love's strength was also very strong among his peers, but his brain was also a bit abnormal. Could it be that the more abnormal a person's brain is, the more powerful they are? Marky looked at Hinata. Hinata was admiring Kakashi at this time, so he went to Kakashi's side and asked cutely, "Kakashi-sensei, can I ask you a few questions?" Kakashi was surprised when he heard this, then he laughed and said, "It's rare for you to have a question to ask, tell me." Hinata's face was serious. He took out a pen and paper. While preparing to record, he asked with a serious face, "Kakashi-sensei, what kind of girl do you like? What kind of person do you think the fifth generation is? Is she your type?" Kakashi. "Kakashi-sensei, do you think you can beat Uchiha Madara?" "Kakashi-sensei, do you think you are more handsome, or the fourth generation is more handsome?" "Kakashi-sensei, do you think you have the hope to surpass the first generation Naruto?" Kakashi was sweating profusely, and he moved away from Hinata several times in a row. "Didn't I just eat 2 meals, is it worth it?" Hinata turned into a little reporter, and asked unrelentingly, "Kakashi-sensei, if you are the 6th generation Naruto, how do you plan to govern the village? Do you have the idea of a harem?" Marky observed all this silently. Marky still remembered Akai's words before. "Niji, I learned a trick from your sister. This white-eyed girl named Hyuga Hinata seems to be Hyuga Niji's sister, and her strength is indeed very strong. My love mentioned before that when he was in the Forest of Death, he was knocked out by Hinata. But the point is that although my love fainted, the Ichibi in his body didn't take the opportunity to snatch my love's body. And all this is because of this white-eyed girl in front of him." Taking a deep breath, Marky turned to look at my love and asked, "My love?" My love turned to look at Marky and asked lightly, "What's the matter?" Marky. "Forget it. It's nothing. It's really not that easy to improve one's strength." Chapter 158. After entering the country of Sichuan once again, Hinata felt that Kakashi's entire aura was different. It was a kind of, how should he put it? It was probably the kind of acting tough like the wind, always with me kind of Chinibu aura. After making a stop gesture, Kakashi landed on the empty space in the forest. Looking around, Kakashi was about to say something. Inadvertently glancing at Hinata, Kakashi said with a headache, "Hinata, don't say anything first." Hinata's face was full of grievance. "What did I do? I haven't even said anything yet." Hinata looked at Kakashi and said with a serious face, "Teacher Kakashi, I know I'm not good with words, and I often make you angry." Kakashi nodded with satisfaction. Hinata still had some self-awareness. After pausing for a moment, Hinata continued, "If you can't bear it, then you should reflect on yourself. Why can others endure it?" Kakashi. Sure enough, he couldn't expect too much from Hinata. Hinata finally concluded, "Teacher Kakashi, your psychological quality is not up to standard." After finding Kakashi's weakness, Hinata decided that from now on, he would no longer worship Kakashi. He looked at Kakashi again. "Hey, that's it." His whole body emitted a salted fish aura. Cough cough. Kakashi coughed lightly and said, "If more enemies appear, we should have a tough battle to fight." Marky interrupted. "If we follow the plan we made yesterday, we should be able to avoid the enemies, right?" Marky felt that Kakashi was quite intelligent. Kakashi's plan to lure the enemies out was quite good. Marky felt that Kakashi's plan was quite good. But he was tricked by Akai. Kakashi and Akai glanced at Marky at the same time. "This person is so insensible." Kakashi ignored Marky and said, "The enemies may come from 2 directions, the Rock Village, or other ninja villages. Although it's just speculation, we have to be prepared. And the people behind us won't give up the mission. We also need to be prepared." Marky frowned and said, "In that case, we should follow the plan last night. The path you are taking now is not the route you planned last night." Kakashi thought about it and explained, "The plan we made last night may have been exposed. Even now, I can't guarantee that there won't be enemies around us." Hinata used Byakugan to investigate around, Not even a snake, insect, rat, or ant was spared. However, the Yamanaka clan and the Aburame clan's secret jutsu are quite tricky. Without Chakra's reaction, it's difficult to see the flaws with Byakugan alone, unless you use experience to judge. Kakashi is not a person who is easily arrogant. Although he wants to use Ninetails' chakra, a mission is a mission, and he won't be so capricious. Looking at Marky, Kakashi finally said, "The reason why I said this is just to let everyone be mentally prepared. As for the plan, it's better to act according to the circumstances. Let's go." Somewhere in the land of Kawa, Kitsuchi was ambushing with 4 Umbu teams. The ground under his feet moved slightly, and Wanya drilled out of the ground. Kitsuchi looked at Wanya and asked, "Did you find any useful information?" Wanya chuckled and said, "Big news, Danzo's people have failed." Failed? Kitsuchi frowned and asked in a deep voice, "What's the specific situation?" The reason why Inoki agreed to be Danzo's knife is because in Inoki's judgment, Danzo's first goal should be to eliminate my love, not the Rock Village. Compared to the Rock Village's Jonin and Umbu, the value of the Sand Village's Jinchuriki is obviously greater. The Sand Village has no Kazekage, and if they lose their Jinchuriki, they will fall into a huge crisis in an instant. Whether it's the other major shinobi villages or the surrounding small shinobi villages, they will all be eyeing the Sand Village. Since the interests of both sides are temporarily the same, it's not impossible to join forces. However, Inoki and Kitsuchi won't easily believe the information that Danzo passed to them. So as soon as he heard that Danzo's operation failed, Kitsuchi immediately became vigilant. When you reported, "There are Hyuga ninjas on Shinobu's side, I don't dare to get too close." Danzo sent about 22 ninjas, and they met Shinobu's Jonin Mato guy. That person's jutsu is very interesting. You should have heard about the 7 swordsmen of the mist from more than 10 years ago, right? Kitsuchi nodded hearing this. Although there isn't much information about that battle, some of it has spread out. Wanya faintly said, "That's all." Oh yes. Shinobu's copy ninja, Hatake Kakashi, planned to split up the team to lure the enemy out. And now the two sides have converged. Kitsuchi asked, "Do you know their current whereabouts?" Wanya shook his head and said, "I don't know. There are 2 Hyuga ninjas in their team, and they take turns to use Byakugan, so I can't continue to follow them." Kitsuchi was silent. According to Inoki's judgment of Danzo, Danzo should have prepared 2 plans. Once the plan to assassinate my love fails, Danzo may join forces with Kakashi and attack the Rock Hidden Village. From these 2 plans, it's not difficult to see Danzo's real intention. They can either start a war and annex the Sand Hidden Village, or weaken the Rock Hidden Village, and sell the Sand Hidden Village a favor. When Root assassinates my love, they will definitely disguise their identity. But once they join forces with Kakashi to fight against the Rock Hidden Village, their identity will become Shinobu Sambu. Kitsuchi knew very well that once their plan to assassinate my love fails, Shinobu and Sand Hideout will have a common enemy. Whether the 4 ninjas of the Sand Hidden Village found Root's flaw or not, they can't reveal it, because it will only destroy the peace between the 2 villages. Kitsuchi asked again, "In addition to Kakashi, Guy, and Marky, are there any other troublesome people there?" "There shouldn't be any." Wanya thought for a while and said lightly, "The people they brought should be Shinobu's genin, and they don't look old." "What?" Kitsuchi frowned and asked in a deep voice, "They are all genin." Wanya also noticed that something was wrong. Escorting the Sand Hidden Village's Jinchuriki is such an important task. How can Shinobu let a few genin participate in the escort mission? Kitsuchi suddenly thought of a piece of information. A few days ago, there was such a big movement in the Land of Rice. It's impossible that the Rock Hidden Village didn't know about it. Orochimaru's Shinobu village was destroyed by Shinobu, and Inoki was prepared to use this matter to make trouble for Shinobu. But according to the information from the Land of Rice, the battle that day wasn't a battle between ninjas at all. It might be an exaggeration to say that the sky is falling, but it's true that the earth is shaking. It's said that Shinobu's village even changed the landscape. Jinchuriki, Kitsuchi almost instantly thought of the key of the matter. Among Shinobu's genin, there must be a Jinchuriki, maybe a perfect one. Chapter 159. Akata stood on the side and asked, "What should we do next? Should we continue with the mission?" Kitsuchi turned to look at Wanya and said, "Wanya, you will lead 2 Umbu teams and be responsible for dragging Shinobu's route." Wanya frowned and said, "But this way, your strength won't be enough. Even if you use a large-scale earth release, you won't be able to do anything to them. If you are discovered in advance, it will be bad." Kitsuchi said, "Give up this mission." Before we set off, Tsuchikage-sama specifically said that if Root's assassination of my love fails, we should immediately give up the mission. But there is one thing that I must investigate. Wanya was puzzled. What is it? Kitsuchi looked into the distance and said with a dignified tone, "Shinobu's Nine-Tails Jinchuriki." Akata froze for a moment and was puzzled. Nine-Tails Jinchuriki? Wanya was also puzzled. Kitsuchi nodded slightly and said, "There is some information that you may not know. Last month, Orochimaru launched a plan to collapse Shinobu and drag the Sand Village into it. But in the end they failed, and even the Ichibi's Jinchuriki fell into Shinobu's hands. But just a few days ago, Shinobu launched a general attack on Orochimaru, and Shinobu Village was destroyed. In that battle, it is said that Shinobu used the power of the 9 tails." Wanya was puzzled. "What does Shinobu's use of the tailed beasts prove?" Kitsuchi explained. "The Sand and Shinobu are not on the same side. According to the information from the Sand, Shinobu's 9 tails Jinchuriki seems to be able to provide the power of the 9 tails to others." "How is this possible?" Wanya was shocked. "Even Rashi and Hansama can't do this. The Rock Village has 2-tailed beasts, the Yambi and the Gobi. As the Jinchuriki, Old Purple and Han have been able to transform into tailed beasts after a long period of hard practice. Even so, no one had ever said that they could lend the power of their tailed beasts to others. Not to mention old Rashi and Han. Even throughout the entire history of the shinobi world, no one has ever been able to do this. But if it was true, Wanya's face was filled with shock. If this information is true, then Shinobu is too terrifying. Kitsuchi, Akatsuki, and Bunya were elite jonins of the Rock Village. They knew some of the secrets of the village. Naturally, they knew the strength of 9 tails. If Shinobu's 9 tails Jinchuriki can really lend the power of the 9 tails to outsiders, then Shinobu is equivalent to having countless tailed beasts. I also thought it was fake, it was the Sand Village's revenge. Huang Tu said in a low voice. But it's precisely because of this that I want to personally investigate. Even if we have to be wiped out, we won't hesitate. Wanya said in a deep voice, "Let me go." Huang Tu shook his head and said, "Here. I'm the only one who is suitable." Akatsuki. Akatsuki shook his head, indicating that he had no problem. Huang Tu nodded and looked around at everyone and said in a solemn tone, "The future of the Rock Village is in your hands. Let's go." At the border between the Land of Wind and the Land of River, my love and the other 3 walked from Shinobu's side to the Sand Village's side. The ninjas of both sides looked at each other, and then turned away. Shinobu's collapse plan has only been going on for about a month. Although Shinobu and Sand Hideout are allies again, the bottom ninjas will never forget the unforgettable hatred between them. No one can easily let go of the death of their companions. After walking away, Hinata put his hands behind his head and said with a relaxed face, "I thought we would encounter a strong enemy this time. I didn't expect it to be so easy." Yes. Kakashi joked. "Hinata, this time, after completing the A-level mission, do you want to invite your sensei to a big meal after going back? After all, he has been teaching you for so long. You should be filial to your sensei." Hinata was silent for a moment. "Well, it's almost September 10th, then I'll invite you on that day." Kakashi heard this and said, "Hey, why are you so generous this time?" Hinata complained with dissatisfaction. "Kakashi-sensei, what do you mean by that? I'm usually very generous, okay? The first round of the Chunin exam is on July 1st, and the third round is on August 6th. Including the time to welcome Tsunade back to the village and the time to investigate the situation in Shinobu, it's already early September. Although there is no such thing as Teacher's Day in the ninja world, since Kakashi mentioned it, Hinata doesn't mind inviting Kakashi to a big meal. Naruto licked his face and came over. Hinata, what about me? What about me? You. Hinata glanced at Naruto with a disgusted face and sneered. Since it's a teacher's appreciation banquet, then you'll pay the bill with me. Originally, Kakashi was a little afraid to go when he saw Hinata agreed so quickly. He was afraid that Hinata would cheat him. But when he heard that Hinata actually pulled Naruto to pay the bill, Kakashi was finally relieved. Sure enough, it's still the Hinata I know. He hasn't changed at all. Hinata turned his head and looked at Kakashi and asked, Kakashi-sensei, if we go back, we don't have to be in such a hurry, right? Kakashi chuckled and said, Don't worry if you want to find a place to rest. Wait until you enter the land of fire. After that, Kakashi looked at Akai and the others. Kai, let's go. Without a mission, Akai finally relaxed and said with a grin, My eternal opponent is Kakashi. Do you want to compete with me to see who can run back to Shinobu first? With that, Akai didn't wait for Kakashi's reply and ran in the direction of Shinobu first. Kai, you actually cheated. Although Kakashi was usually a lazy fish, Akai always seemed to have a way to arouse Kakashi's fighting spirit. As he spoke, Kakashi also increased his speed and caught up with Akai in a short while. Akai also increased his speed once again. The two of them were like children, competing with each other and soon disappeared without a trace. Hinata, Niji and the other two looked at each other, and could only helplessly follow. They deserved to be unlucky to have such a superior ninja. However, there was one thing that Hinata felt that Kakashi would definitely win. In Naruto's original work, Kakashi had once competed with Akai. It seemed that Akai had peeked at Kakashi when he went to the toilet. In the end, Kakashi was even bigger, and Akai suffered a crushing defeat. Akai looked so strong, but he was actually as small as a hazelnut. Therefore, even if Akai finally obtained the title of Kai Emperor, he would still be defeated by Kakashi. At least in terms of being a man, Kakashi would definitely win. Hinata looked at Niji, Xiaoli and Tian and said with a smile, Why don't we compete as well? Point system. The first person to reach Shinobu will get 5 points, second place 4 points, third place 3 points, fourth place 2 points, and fifth place 1 point. The team with the highest points will be the winner. The team that loses will be responsible for treating them to a meal when they return to Shinobu. Niji looked at Hinata with a smile, nodded, and said with a smile, Okay. Xiaoli was so excited that his entire body was on fire. He excitedly shouted, I can't wait. Chapter 160. Following behind Hinata, Naruto said with a face full of grievances, Hinata, why did you compete with them? And you didn't ask for my opinion. Next, I have to treat Kakashi-sensei to a meal. If I also treat Akai-sensei my wallet. Naruto silently calculated his savings. Even if his brain wasn't very good, at this moment, Naruto was extremely shrewd. When he was looking for Tsunade, Naruto's savings had almost been cheated by Jiraiya. Although later he won a lot of money from the gambling machine. But usually he still has to eat and replenish his ninja tools. So Naruto's wallet shrank at a speed visible to the naked eye. If these two meals were treated, Naruto may not even be able to eat instant noodles, and he would really have to eat soil to survive. Hinata smiled and comforted. Don't worry, Naruto. When it's almost time, we'll use Nine Tails chakra to sprint. We'll definitely win. Naruto touched his stomach. Nine Tails chakra is used like this? But if it's for the sake of the wallet, it doesn't seem impossible. The running competition seems to be nonsense, but in fact, it's to leave the country of Kawa faster. Although Kakashi and Akai are running in front, the distance between them and Hinata's group of 5 is not too far. Once one side is attacked by the enemy, the other side can immediately rush over to support. Everyone is a ninja. Even if they are fooling around, they will still maintain the vigilance of a ninja. Kitsuchi-sama, Shinobu's ninja separated. Kakashi and Madogai are in the front, the 5 ninjas are behind. The distance between the two sides is about 500 meters. Hearing the Umbu's report, Kitsuchi wasn't surprised. Kakashi and Madogai are elite ninjas famous in the ninja world. If they don't have a little bit of preparation, then it may be a trap. However, even so, Kitsuchi can't guarantee that his group won't be discovered by Kakashi. But the information of Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is too important. This is related to the attitude of the Rock Village towards Shinobu. In any case, Kitsuchi won't give up this test. Action. Including Akata and the two Umbu teams, a group of 10 people quickly moved through the forest. Although they can't grasp the whereabouts of Kakashi, and the location of Shinobu's and Sand Hideout's exchange location is fixed. Kitsuchi's SSSSSS information is his. After 10 minutes as Ansuf's Earth Release, Earth Ball, the 8 Umbu formed hand seals at the same time, and dug out a huge rock with a diameter of about 5 meters from the ground and smashed it towards Hinata's group. With such a big movement, it's impossible for Hinata's not to notice. Hinata instantly condensed chakras. While the boulders were flying in the air, he integrated natural chakra into the chakras. Don't panic, let the boulders fly for a while. Get behind me, Hinata shouted, and then punched out with both fists. Empty palm. Boom, boom, boom. Hinata punched 8 times at the same time in an instant, hitting the boulders flying in the air and smashing them. Hinata used Byakugan to communicate with Nine-Tails. The 5 of them held hands, and the Nine-Tails chakras, red bubble-like coat instantly covered Hinata, Niji, Xiaoli, and Tian. Tian, protect Naruto, let's go. Hinata wasn't someone who would just stand there and take a beating without retaliating. He quickly ran towards the enemy while condensing the immortal technique Chakra Fist. Seeing that he was about to fight with the Rock Hidden Village, Hinata jumped into the air and punched the Rock Hidden Village's people. King Bomb. Hinata wasn't greedy. He used his most powerful skill, aiming at the 5 Umbu of the Rock Village. The fusion of the Nine-Tails Chakra and the immortal technique Chakra not only increased the power of Hinata's moves by several times, even his speed was so fast that the naked eye could not capture them. Boom, boom, boom. The 5 Rock Umbu didn't even have time to react before they were blown up by the chakra. Damn it! Huang Tu clenched his teeth and cursed under his breath. He then roared, "Retreat!" In that instant, Yellow Earth had roughly glanced at it. It was the little girl from the Hyuga family who pulled the others along and passed on the chakra of Nine-Tails. The Nine-Tails Jinchuriki of Shinobu's generation is actually a Hyuga family. What the hell? As for the yellow-haired brat, at this moment, he was completely ignored by Lus. Who has ever seen a situation where a Jinchuriki can't use the power of a tailed beast, but others can use it at will? Maybe that yellow-haired brat is a bottom feeder, or maybe he's a support-type ninja, so he didn't lend his power to him. Huang Tu thought to himself. Since he has already probed the information of the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, there is no need to stay here. If they continued to fight, once the nine-tailed beast was revealed, they would all be wiped out. Yellow Earth rapidly formed seals with his hands. Earth Release, Earth Moving Core. The ground between Hinata and the people from the Rock Village quickly protruded, and in the blink of an eye, a wall of tens of meters high was formed, blocking the way of Hinata and the others. Humph! Hinata stood on the trunk with an unhappy face, while Niji and Xiaoli landed beside Hinata. This time the enemy is not good enough. Originally, Hinata also planned to take the opportunity to communicate with Mori Crane, and see if he could persuade Mori Crane to give him some power. After all, that fat cat gave people the impression that it was stupid. But now that the mission is over, Hinata didn't find a suitable opportunity. Hinata was depressed, but the enemy took the initiative to come to his door and let Hinata vent. He didn't expect the enemy to be so weak. They immediately retreated after one attack. It's too outrageous. Are these the ninjas of the Rock Village? If he knew, he would have let Naruto directly turn into a bijou and use the bijou jade to cover his face. Kakashi and Akai quickly came, and Kakashi even revealed his Sharingan. Seeing this situation, Kakashi was puzzled and asked, "What's going on? The enemy retreated so quickly?" Hinata said with his hands on his waist, "Why didn't you run? Are you waiting for death?" Kakashi shook his head and analyzed. Something's wrong. If the enemy's target is us, then they should be more prepared, not like this. Akai said. Kakashi, don't worry, we have 5 genin here. Akai-sensei. Hinata looked up at Akai and complained. I am already a chunin. Kakashi frowned. Genin. Kakashi suddenly looked back at Naruto. The reason why Tsunade sent Kaiban and Kakashi to escort my love is because of the combination of Hinata and Naruto. They can use the Nine Tails chakra to instantly enhance the team's combat effectiveness. And the 4 people in Kaiban, except for Tien, Niji and Xiaoli are not bad. But the key point is, Genin. Normally, such an important task like escorting a Jinchuriki back to the village is impossible to send a Genin. Unless, these Genin are special. Kakashi's face was dignified and he said, Guy, there is a problem. We must immediately rush back to Shinobu. Kai nodded and gave him a thumbs up. Then let's continue the match that was tied just now. Chapter 161. Naruto's Office. Kakashi finished the mission report, scratched his head and said half-dead, "That's about it." Although Akai was attacked by root ninjas, Kakashi covered it up with the excuse of unknown origin. As for the specific truth, Tsunade naturally knew in her heart. Tsunade looked at Hinata with a strange look. Hinata was a little embarrassed and said with a red face, "Big sister, why are you staring at me?" Tsunade crossed her fingers on the table and said in a heavy tone, "Although it's not a big problem, but Hinata and Naruto, the 2 of you should be careful in the future." Kakashi said indifferently, "Actually, we don't have to be too careful." Kakashi glanced at Hinata and said, "Right. Hinata?" Hinata nodded blankly and said what she was thinking. "If we encounter an enemy next time, just close the door and release the Kyuubi. How could we be so careless this time and let the enemy escape?" Tsunade's forehead was full of black lines. Although she had received information that Hinata liked to use big moves, if this big move was as big as Baijidama, then it was not good. What if the enemy appeared in Shinobu's territory? A Baijidama would blow up Shinobu and the enemy together? Jiraiya opened the window of Naruto's office and sat on the windowsill. Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said, "Tsunade, I will be taking Naruto on a trip after the ceremony of you succeeding Naruto." Tsunade frowned and did not say anything. Naruto asked curiously, "Lecherous Immortal, why do you want to take me on a trip?" Jiraiya looked at Naruto and said in a serious tone, "Naruto, you should have felt powerless because of your lack of strength, right? You can't do anything now, and you can't change anything. And you've already been targeted. Or rather, the thing in your stomach has been targeted. During this trip, I will do my best to train you." Naruto said excitedly, "Lecherous Immortal, are you going to teach me more powerful ninjutsu?" Jiraiya nodded and smiled. "How is it? Are you excited?" Naruto thought for a moment and said, "Lecherous Immortal, can we wait until the 11th? Jiraiya asked curiously, "Why?" Naruto smiled foolishly and said, "Because Hinata and I have an agreement to invite Kakashi Sensei to a meal to thank him for teaching us." Jiraiya jumped down from the window and said casually, "Then count me in." "Hinata, this immortal has also taught you and Naruto. You won't ignore me, right?" Hinata spread his hands and sneered, "Sure. Can you eat it back?" Hinata took out a stack of paper from his ninja tool bag and shook it in front of Jiraiya, showing off, "Lecherous Immortal, do you see it? These are the meal tickets I won during the Chunin exam. My meals for the next year are here." After Naruto left, Shinobu shouldn't have any major events for a long time, and Hinata can also find someone to collect the debt. I'll also take Choji as my little brother. Everyone in the room. Jiraiya looked at Hinata and said with a smile, "Hinata, Naruto and I will be back in 2 or 3 years. At that time, I'll have to trouble you to teach Naruto how to master the power of the 9 tails." Hinata patted his chest and promised, "Don't worry. Leave everything to me." "That's right." Hinata suddenly turned his head and looked at Niji and the others, and the smile on his face was almost unconcealable. "Brother Niji, Xiaoli Tian, you won't go back on your words, right?" Tian's face was bitter, but Xiaoli made a manly promise. A man's words carry weight, and he will do it. Tsunade rolled his eyes. "A man's words carry weight? That's because you haven't seen Hinata's appetite yet. Since you already have a date, don't waste your time here." Walking out of Naruto's office, Hinata waved to everyone and said with a smile. Then I'll see you tonight. I'll go home and change my clothes first. See you tonight. Hinata and Niji were on the way, and Niji looked at Hinata with some worry, and said with a dignified face, Hinata-sama, if Naruto goes out traveling, you have to be careful in the future. Although he doesn't know how much information the Rock Village has so far, Hinata has used the Nine Tails chakra 3 times. The information that should be leaked has already been leaked. A Nine Tails Jinchuriki may not be terrible, but a person who can lend the power of the Nine Tails to others is the target of the other major ninja villages. Relax. Relax, Hinata said indifferently. I'm not afraid of the enemies outside. As long as no one in Shinobu does anything to him, there will be no problem. At least, Hinata's whereabouts won't be leaked out. But now, Hinata had many protective umbrellas on her. Not to mention the Hyuga family and Tsunade. Just the fact that Hinata can pass the Nine Tails chakra to others. Shinobu will never let anything happen to Hinata. So Hinata is very safe now. Even if Hinata goes to Root to eat and drink, Danzo has to serve him carefully. Speaking of Root, well, if he has time he must go to Root and eat a big meal. As for the threats from outside the village, he will deal with them all the way. Niji nodded. In short, you have to be careful. Suddenly thinking of something, Hinata looked at Niji with a smile and asked, Niji Oniai-san, will you participate in the Chunin exam in February next year? Shinobu holds 2 Chunin exams every year, the first in February and the second in August. Most of the Chunin exams are held by Shinobu himself. As for the joint Chunin exam, it will only be held once every few years, and it will be held a month in advance. I should. Niji nodded and said, You are already a Chunin, and I graduated a year earlier than you. Of course, I have to work harder. Hinata smiled like a little fox. Then I'll go and apply to be an examiner with Big Sister. I've already thought about what to do in the written exam. But, Niji Oniai-san, although we are family, I won't cheat for you. Niji. He always felt that this Chunin exam was hopeless. Niji chuckled and said, The content of the written exam is set by a Jonin. You are now a Chunin. Hinata was not convinced. What if I get promoted to Jonin before February next year? Besides, the examiner of next year's written exam will probably be Ibixi. Niji Oniai-san, do you think Ibixi won't give me face? Thinking of the first round of the Chunin exam last time, when Ibixi was tortured by Hinata, Niji couldn't help but mourn for Ibixi for 3 seconds. He hoped that Ibixi wouldn't despair of life. Chapter 162. Back home, Hinata lay in the tub and took a bath. She folded the towel and put it on her head. She couldn't help it. Her head hurt. Naruto was about to leave the village, and Sasuke followed Orochimaru. And all of this was Danzo's fault. There is a pot and a stone under the heavens. Danzo alone carries 8 of them, and Shikage carries 1 of them. Since ancient times, they have carried 1 of them. Whether it was Naruto or Sasuke, they both had their reasons to leave Shinobu. Although Tsunade was very popular in Shinobu, she had just returned to Shinobu. Her control over the village was far less than Danzo, who had been in the sewers for half of his life. If Naruto continued to stay in Shinobu, Danzo might not be able to get Naruto, but he would definitely do something in private. In fact, from Sasuke's defection to Danzo's public opposition to the alliance with the Sand, Tsunade was already a little tired of dealing with these 2 things. The war had just ended, and the hatred of the low-level ninjas towards the Sand was not so easy to let go. Danzo bought people's hearts at this time, and the effect was unexpectedly good. If Naruto continued to stay in Shinobu, he might not be in any danger as the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, but what about the people around Naruto? Too many people fell into darkness because of the death of their companions. Nagato and Bordered Soil were among them. Danzo would definitely take advantage of this. For example, let Iruka die in front of Naruto. And Naruto was also targeted by organizations. Jiraiya must train Naruto as much as possible while investigating the organizations, so that Naruto grows up as soon as possible. For Danzo, the king of Shinobu, Hinata didn't want to comment too much. In fact, Danzo was just like most ambitious people. He spoke beautiful words, but behind his back he did all kinds of dirty things. He said that he was for Shinobu, but he didn't do anything when Ninetales attacked Shinobu. He didn't do anything when Shinobu's plan collapsed. When pain invaded, he directly hid underground and explained everything with a necessary sacrifice. Maybe Danzo wasn't like this at the beginning. But Danzo had been in darkness for so long that there was only darkness in his world. Danzo's nature was actually the kind of person who would do anything to achieve his goals. For Shinobu, Danzo's means were very dirty. For Naruto's position, his means were also not clean. The 3 generations could be said to have suppressed Danzo for a lifetime. Danzo's only opportunity was to use the reason of Shinobu's loss in the Third Shinobu World War to pressure the 3 generations, and force the 3 generations to step down from Naruto's position. But Namikaze Minato appeared at this time. The Ninetales incident was originally a great opportunity for Danzo to suppress Namikaze Minato. After all, Namikaze Minato's wife, Uzumaki Kushina, was the Ninetales Jinchuriki at that time. But Namikaze Minato died on the spot, because he sealed Ninetales. Since he was already dead, there was no need for Danzo to continue to suppress him. But the 3 generations stood up at this time, and once again presided over Shinobu's overall situation as 3 generations Naruto. The 3 generations suppressed Danzo for a lifetime, and Danzo also stayed low for half of his life. But if a person stays low for too long, he may really become a dog. But dogs also know how to be loyal to their masters. What does Danzo know? He will only betray the village's intelligence. Although Hinata was not a political novice, he was too lazy to care about these things. The overall situation of the Hyuga family was left to Hyogo to deal with. It's just that Danzo's existence always made Hinata feel uneasy. Tsunade's skills were still not enough to win against Danzo. After all, we can't expect a gambler to defeat a cunning old man in the political field. Moreover, this gambler was the kind of gambler who lost every bet. For a rat like Danzo who stayed in Shinobu's sewers all year round, the best way to deal with him was to destroy him humanely. But Hinata still had a big family behind him. He couldn't just run to the door of Root and throw a set of bombs at everyone. If Hinata really did that, then he could only defect. So Danzo still had to be handed over to Sasuke. Danzo stayed low for half of his life. The 2nd generation died, the 3 generations died, the 4th generation died, and the 5th generation died. He had just become the acting Naruto when he was KO'd by Sasuke halfway. Hinata felt that this way of dying was very suitable for Danzo. The dream that he had chased for a lifetime was about to be realized, but he died first. He stopped thinking about Naruto. Anyway, Naruto would follow Jiraiya to the hot springs everywhere. There would be no danger for 2 or 3 years. On the contrary, Hinata himself. In fact, Hinata was very clear about his value. After all, besides Uchiha Madara, Hinata was the 2nd person who could control the Ninetales to fight. Uchiha Madara relied on the power of the Mangekyo Sharingan, while Hinata relied on acting cute to win the Ninetales. With such a huge value, Hinata believed that he would be very safe in Shinobu. But he was afraid that Danzo wanted Hinata very much, and would use some sinister means behind his back. For example, threatening his family and the like. Unless Danzo leaves Shinobu, there is really no way to deal with him. Hinata sighed. People say that having an old person in the family is like having a treasure. But why is it that when it comes to Shinobu, it's not the case at all? Walala. After taking a bath, Hinata put on his clothes and went back to his room, lying on the bed like a salted fish. Since the Chunin exam, Hinata has been so busy that her feet barely touched the ground. First, he went to welcome Tsunade back to the village, then he went to chase Sasuke, and then he escorted my love back to the village. Now he could finally have some free time. Thinking of the dinner party in the evening, Hinata didn't dare to sleep now. His white eyes looked around, and Hinata finally found Mackerel Muscle in the corner, covered with dust. What a poor little thing. Your master has almost forgotten about you. When he grabbed Mackerel Muscle, Hinata was just on a whim. It wasn't until he fooled Ninetales that Hinata remembered the real role of Mackerel Muscle. Although the ability of Mackerel Muscle is good, it doesn't match well with Hinata. Hinata's current chakra is enough. After opening the Tensigen, He can also remotely extract other people's chakra. The ability of mackerel muscle is not very useful for Hinata. He can't let Hinata use mackerel muscle to cut people everywhere, right? I, Otsutsuki Hinata, have never used a sword in the ninja world. Hinata dragged out a box from under the bed and took out a slightly larger seal scroll to seal mackerel muscle. We'll meet again 3 years later. It's rare that he's willing to move. Hinata plans to clean up his pigsty. Although his mother often comes to help clean up, sometimes the room is really messy, and even Hinata himself can't stand it. For example, the clothes under Hinata's feet. He didn't know when it was taken off, and it has been under the bed. When he picked it up and looked at it, it was obviously a small size. Carrying a bucket of water, Hinata picked up the linen and began to clean up the room. Until 5 o'clock in the evening, Hinata looked at the big bag of garbage in front of him with a shocked face. There were actually so many useless things hidden in his not-so-big bedroom. All these years, how did I survive? Chapter 163. In the evening, Hinata, Naruto, and Kaiben gathered together for a meal. Kakashi and Akai didn't come. The 5 little ones gathered together, and because of Hinata and Niji's relationship, the atmosphere was very lively. Hinata originally wanted to drink some wine to liven things up, but he was stopped by Niji and Tian. There was no mission the next day. Hinata stayed in bed and slept until 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and finally recovered some vitality. Brushing teeth, washing face, eating, Hinata walked to the small courtyard and stood there. I, Otsutsuki Hinata, will work hard today. Even a salted fish will always have a chance to turn over. When investigating the information of Shinobu Village, Hinata once watched the Battle of Nine Tails at close range, and he really gained a lot. Nine Tails chakra, whether in terms of quality or density, is far superior to ordinary ninjas. No matter how much chakra an ordinary ninja has at best, it's just a little bit more mana, and it doesn't have any attribute increase for the ninja. Just like Naruto and dried persimmon mackerel, their chakra is actually just a mana bar. At most, they can use large-scale ninjutsu that consumes a lot of mana. But Nine Tails is different. Nine Tails chakra can increase all attributes, whether it's strength, speed, or defense. They will be greatly improved with the help of Nine Tails chakra. The effect is probably similar to Sage Mode. When Nine Tails fights, it looks like he's using a huge amount of chakra. In fact, it's more or less like that. But if you feel it carefully, you can feel that there's a little difference. When Nine Tails condensed the second Bijidama, he once used chakra to shock Hinata back. However, it wasn't as simple as Chakra's shockwave. Instead, it was similar to Akai's morning peacock. It used chakra to vibrate the air, creating shockwaves in the air. When Orochimaru used the all-snake formation, Nine Tails only had to wave his hands to form a huge shockwave that destroyed the all-snake formation. Hinata still remembered how Nine Tails used chakra. First, he used his high-density chakra to vibrate the air, creating a powerful shockwave that instantly destroyed everything within a radius of 100 meters. Nine Tails' fighting style was really crude. Due to the huge amount of chakra he possessed, Nine Tails could not control every single strand of chakra in detail. So what if it was a waste? That little bit of chakra was nothing to Nine Tails. However, Nine Tails' technique of vibrating the air with chakra gave Hinata a lot of inspiration. Can Gentle Fist also make a more powerful move by vibrating the air and expand the range of ninjutsu? Of course, this is difficult to do. The reason why Nine Tails could do it so easily is because Nine Tails' chakra is extremely large, and the quality and density are not comparable to ordinary ninjas. But what if he enters Sage Mode? If Hinata enters Sage Mode, all his attributes will be greatly improved under the increase of natural energy, and the quality and density of Senjutsu chakra shouldn't be much worse than Kyuubi's chakra. Byakugan. Hinata condensed chakra fist and punched the air in front of him. Akai can use moves like Morning Peacock, Day Tiger, and Evening Elephant because Akai's strength and speed have been comprehensively improved under the state of opening the Hashimen Tanku. Akai uses his own strength and speed to create an air shock wave. Kyuubi, on the other hand, uses his huge, dense, and high-quality chakra to push the air to form a shock wave in an instant. Hinata walks on the path of Gentle Fist. The basic difference between Gentle Fist and Steel Fist is that Gentle Fist directly attacks the opponent through chakra. Steel Fist uses chakra to enhance the body, and then attacks the opponent with the strength of the body. Gentle Fist is a way to use chakra, while Steel Fist uses chakra to enhance the body. So if Hinata wants to make moves similar to Morning Peacock and Day Tiger, he has to learn from Nine Tails. How do I do it? If Hinata has a huge amount of chakra like Nine Tails, he can easily do it. Although Hinata's chakra is far more than an ordinary ninja, if compared with a tailed beast, it is probably the gap between Sakura and Tsunade. If you want to use Steel Fist to create an air shockwave, as long as the speed is fast enough and the strength is strong enough, it can be done. But if you want to use chakra to hit the air, it is not a matter of speed and strength. Bang! Hinata fell to the ground and decided to think about it first. Hinata has always believed that the true meaning of the ninja world is not only in the various magical ninjutsu, but also in the magic of chakra itself. Chakra is divided into levels. Hinata made a classification of chakra before. Ordinary chakra, Senjutsu chakra, Six Paths chakra. The universe's green ambassador Otsutsuki clan planted trees all over the world. So what is the nutrient of the sacred tree? It must be natural energy. So the real boss behind the scenes of the ninja world should be the great Toad Sage. It was this guy who instigated Six Paths Sunin to rebel against his mother, which led to Otsutsuki Kagaya being sealed for thousands of years. The existence of Mount Myaboku may be longer than the time when Otsutsuki Kagaya came to the ninja world. Mount Myaboku is a holy land for practicing senjutsu. If the nutrient of the sacred tree is really natural energy, then the three holy lands and the Otsutsuki clan are innately opposed. Hinata thought of his previous life. Although diesel and gasoline are the same oil, the two have different effects. So is it because the structure of chakra is different? The Nine Tails is separated from the Jubi, so the Nine Tails has some of the characteristics of the Jubi, such as natural energy. So in essence, the body of the tailed beast may also contain natural energy. In addition, the Nine Tails chakra and chakra under the Hashiman Tanka state have one thing in common. That is berserk. Perhaps this is why they can hit the air to form air shock waves. And natural energy also has the characteristics of berserk. So everything is back to the beginning. If Hinata wants to use moves like Morning Peacock, Day Tiger and Evening Elephant, natural energy is the foundation. Hinata turned over. First he condensed the chakra fist on his right hand, and then merged it with natural energy to form the Senjutsu chakra fist. If it's just like this, it shouldn't be enough. Hinata has also used Senjutsu chakra fist to fight with the enemy before, but she couldn't create a shockwave. It should be a little more violent. Hinata no longer maintained the balance of the three kinds of energy in chakra fist. He continued to absorb natural energy. Just by absorbing a little more natural energy, the three kinds of energy in chakra fist were instantly out of balance. Hinata almost couldn't maintain the shape of chakra fist. Ha! Hinata aimed at the sky and punched with all his strength. Chakra fist instantly left his hand and exploded in mid-air with a bang. Chapter 164. Hoo-hoo-hoo. A gust of wind blew from mid-air, and the high-intensity air pressure made Hinata almost unable to raise his head, and he could only barely reach out to resist it. The sand and stones on the ground were flying, the leaves were falling, and the trunk of the cherry tree in the courtyard was instantly crushed by the violent air pressure. The small courtyard, which was originally considered elegant, turned into a mess in an instant. Amazing! Hinata admired himself at this moment. I'm really a super invincible genius in the universe. Please don't use the word hard work to easily erase my talent. Let the Senjutsu chakra have three kinds of energy imbalance, and then throw the unbalanced Senjutsu chakra fist. At the moment of the explosion, an air shock wave was formed. This principle is actually very simple. Just like the explosion of a grenade, a huge pressure is generated by the explosion on the airflow, thus forming a destructive shock wave to attack the enemy. And this trick is far from perfect. Since the explosion was caused by the energy imbalance, Hinata would like to try to see to what extent the three kinds of energy imbalance is so that the power of the explosion is the greatest. Hinata has already thought about it. Art is explosion. In the future, while discussing luxury car brands with Sasori of the Red Sand, he can also discuss the art of explosion with Deidara. Let's see if Deidara's clay bomb or his energy imbalance bomb is more powerful. I need to give this move a high-end name. What should I call it? Elemental Energy Bomb? Gaia Energy Cannon? I don't think it's very good. Hinata sat on the ground and thought hard. Hinata Takuma appeared in front of Hinata, glanced at the messy small courtyard, and said with admiration, Hinata-sama, it seems that your newly developed ninjutsu has been successful. Hinata said without raising his head. No, it's still a little short. Hinata Takuma curiously asked. What is still missing? Is there anything I can do to help Lord Hinata? Hinata looked up at Hinata Takuma and declined politely. No, your looks can't help me. Hinata Takuma. Hinata stood up and patted his butt, casually instructing. All right, Takuma. Remember to get someone to help me clean up the courtyard. All right, Lord Hinata. Hinata was about to return to his room to rest, when he saw Hyogo coming from the corner of the corridor. Hinata bowed and said, Father. Hyuga Hayashi nodded, looked at the courtyard first and asked faintly, Are you developing a new ninjutsu? Hinata nodded his little head and looked at Hyogo with admiration. He said excitedly, Father, do you want to try my new unique skill? This skill is not mature yet, and I can't control its power. I don't know if it can kill people. Why don't you give me some pointers? Hyogo was almost angered to death by Hinata. You don't know if it can kill people? Then why did you ask your father to test it? Do you have to beat your father to death before you can know if your new unique skill can kill people, or not? You're all grown up now. Hyuga Hayashi snorted softly and asked faintly, Is it still based on that move? Yes, yes. Hinata nodded again and explained, Well, it can be regarded as a product of failed cultivation. Cultivation of a ninjutsu must maintain the balance of 3 types of energy. If the energy is out of balance, it will naturally result in failure. But failure also has its uses. After all, failure is the mother of success, and failure can be very powerful sometimes. It's like 6 Paths Sunin successfully sealed Otsutsuki Kagaya, but 6 Paths Senin's mother, Otsutsuki Kagaya, was sealed on the moon for thousands of years because she failed. So sometimes failure can be more powerful than success. Hyogo didn't ask any more questions. Anyway, he couldn't use it even if he asked, so he might as well not ask. Being beaten by his daughter, he felt frustrated. Pushing open the door of Hinata's room, Hyogo said lightly, Come in with me. Hinata quickly blocked the door and shook his head desperately. If you want to talk about something, let's go to your study. Hyogo asked coldly, Is there anything in the room that can't be seen? Hinata shook his head. No. Anyway, he couldn't enter. Come with me. He followed Hyogo into his study, and the two sat opposite each other. Hyogo said first, Hinata, between you and Naruto. What does he mean? Is he worried that his cabbage will be eaten by other people's pigs? Hinata quickly explained. There is nothing between me and Naruto, father, please don't worry. Hyogo said in a deep voice, I'm not talking about Naruto, but the 9 tails in his body. Hinata, between you and 9 tails, is it? Hyogo didn't know how to ask. He received a piece of information before, and it almost made him die. Hinata briefly explained the relationship between himself and 9 tails. Hyogo nodded slightly and said in a deep voice, Hinata, your situation may become very dangerous. Your name has begun to spread in the ninja world. Hinata said happily, That's a good thing. There are so many famous ninjas in the ninja world. I shouldn't be in any danger, right? Hyogo's face was pale, and he said coldly, 9 tails Jinchuriki Hinata, is it a good thing? What? Hinata was stunned. What am I? 9 tails Jinchuriki? What about Naruto? What is he? Hyogo continued, The information came from the Rock Village. They said that you are the perfect 9 tails Jinchuriki. Not only can you transform into a 9 tails Jinchuriki at any time, but you can also lend the 9 tails chakra to others. What's more, the Rock Village also said that you once transformed into a Bijidama in the land of rice and used it to destroy the Shinobu village. Hinata quickly denied. Shinobu village was a misunderstanding. I didn't mean to destroy the Shinobu village. I just wanted to collect some information about Orochimaru. Collect information? Hyogo snorted. Do you need to use a Bijidama to collect information? Hinata said with a look of dissatisfaction. Of course. Father, think about it. Shinobu village has so much information about Orochimaru. But how can I get that information? Of course, first destroy the Shinobu village, then defeat Orochimaru, and finally bring back all the information. Hyogo, why is your method of collecting information so good? If Orochimaru is killed on the spot, what's the use of collecting information? Hinata was also full of dissatisfaction. If Orochimaru is really killed, then wouldn't he be able to collect any information? Hyogo calmed down and tried to maintain the calmness on his face, and said faintly, once the information that you are the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki spreads in the ninja world, you will be in a very dangerous situation. Hinata, this is not an alarmist. If it's just a perfect Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, then it's not terrible. But the most terrible thing is, you can lend the power of Nine-Tails to others. Although there are ninja confidentiality rules, I still want to know, what did you do to the Rock Village in the last mission? Chapter 165. Hinata scratched her face full of hesitation. I didn't do anything. Those rock ninjas came to ambush us, and I used Nine-Tails' chakra to fight them off. Hinata felt that Naruto had to take the blame for the fact that he was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. You are the real Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Why can't you deal with the Nine-Tails? Why do you want me to take the blame for you? If it doesn't obey, just beat it. If you can't beat it, just act cute. If acting cute doesn't work, just feed it delicious food. There are so many ways to raise pigs, cats and dogs, and there must be one that suits you. If Hinata was really the fake Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, then Hinata would accept it. But Hinata wasn't even a fake, at best he was a fake. Am I, Otsutsuki Hinata, going to carry the name of Kyuubi Jinchuriki in the future? That's too shameful. All Nine-Tails belong to my family, and I have the potential to become the Jubi's Jinchuriki. Hyogo's face was serious. Danzo came to Hyogo before and talked to him about Hinata. So when Hyogo first heard that the Rock Village thought that Hinata was the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, he thought that it was Danzo's conspiracy. But when he heard Hinata's words, then this matter should have nothing to do with Danzo. It should be the Rock Village's own mistake. However, Danzo must also take 80% of the blame. In fact, if it was just the Rock Village's own mistake, then it doesn't matter. But the key point is that Hinata can pass the Nine-Tails chakra to others. This is a miracle that hasn't happened in the shinobi world for many years. Once this matter is confirmed to be true, then Hinata's situation will be very dangerous. The Rock Village will definitely spread this news. Even Shinobu had to face a certain amount of pressure. Hinata, you should stay in the village for the time being. Don't go out for missions for the time being. Hinata nodded vigorously. This was simply too awesome. The ninja world is so dangerous. I want to stay at home. I don't want to go out. If it was someone else who said this, Hinata would definitely not agree to it in order to maintain his reputation. But in front of Hyogo, Hinata didn't care so much about his face. It was great that he didn't have to do any missions. He could stay at home all day and go shopping when he was bored. He could also enjoy Shinobu's delicious food. Thinking about it this way, the Rock Village did a good thing. He had to find a time to go to the Rock Hidden Village and thank Inoki personally. He also wanted to thank his son Kitsuchi and his granddaughter Kuratsuchi. The most important thing for a family is to be neat and tidy. Hyogo sighed. Although Hinata's talent is high, his personality is not good, and his ability to cause trouble is not small. What should he do in the future? Go do your own thing. Okay. Goodbye, father. In a cave somewhere in the country of rain, several figures wearing black robes with red clouds appeared one after another. The figure was somewhat illusory. This was the organization's genjutsu. We just met. What's wrong? Is the organization about to be disbanded? I'm in the middle of a ceremony. If I disturb the worship of the Lord, I will be cursed by the Lord. It seems that Shinobu's information is wrong. Pain's shadow slowly appeared. He glanced at the crowd and said faintly, Zetsu, you say it. Haha. There is news from the rock-hidden village. Shinobu's Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is not Uzumaki Naruto, but the little girl named Hinata. As soon as White Zetsu's voice fell, Black Zetsu continued. A few days ago, Shinobu escorted the Ichibi back to the Sand Village and was ambushed by the rock-hidden village. The Jonin of the Rock Village personally confirmed that the Kyubi Jinchuriki is Hyuga Hinata. The rock-hidden village has sent this information to the ninja world. Ghost Mackerel wondered, why did the rock-hidden village do this? White Zetsu laughed. That's because Hinata can lend the Nine-Tails chakra to outsiders. According to the information I received, she has done this 3 times. Sasori snorted and said, was she also the one who did the Orochimaru incident? White Zetsu said with a smile. The battle started a bit suddenly, and when I arrived, the battle was already over. But Hinata was there at the time, and it's very likely that she did it. Pain turned to Itachi Uchiha and asked faintly, Itachi, do you have anything to say? Itachi Uchiha, MMP. This organization is hopeless. They even believe this kind of nonsense, and they even gathered everyone together to discuss it. I have lived in Shinobu for 13 years. How can I not know who the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki is? Itachi Uchiha said faintly. It should be the rock-hidden village's people who made a mistake. Pain didn't continue to ask. Anyway, there are still 3 years. Whether the information is true or not, he will know sooner or later. For the ninja village, the information of the Jinchuriki is top secret. Although Naruto is hated by everyone in Shinobu because of the identity of the demon fox, for the people outside the village, Naruto's identity is top secret. Even if the people in the village know that Naruto is the incarnation of the demon fox, and Naruto is strange, the 3 generations also issued a gag order, and no one is allowed to talk about Naruto. When they rescued my love in the original work, even Deidara and Sasori didn't know what Naruto looked like, and they had to ask Itachi Uchiha. So when he first received the information that Hinata may be the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Pain did suspect Itachi Uchiha, thinking that he provided false information to the organization. But since Itachi Uchiha insisted that Naruto is the real Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, Pain didn't believe that he would lie about this matter. Since the Rock Village misjudged the information, then we don't have to worry about this matter. But the reason why the Rock Village misjudged the information is very important. Hinata can lend the Nine-Tails chakra to outsiders. Is there any reliable information? White Zetsu laughed and said, of course it's true. The little girl named Hinata is very amazing. Her eyes can see the bijou in the body of the Jinchuriki, and it seems that she has reached some kind of agreement with the Nine-Tails. Ehe. But with this kind of thing happening, Konoha shouldn't send her out again in a short time. Pain said, Zetsu, pay more attention to the information about Hinata. Ghost Mackerel and Itachi's last mission failed because of her. Although they couldn't see Ghost Mackerel's face at this time, everyone could clearly feel that Ghost Mackerel's breath was a bit unnatural. He's too difficult. Itachi Uchiha said lightly, the Hyuga clan's taijutsu has a lot of limitations. Hinata's achievements are probably about to end. Pain replied with a faint hum. His eyes were cold as he said, there are only 3 years left. Can you all complete your tasks? There was silence in the cave, and no one answered Pain's question. Pain has long been used to this, and he said lightly, then, see you in 3 years. Before disappearing, Pain deliberately looked at Itachi Uchiha. Chapter 166. Another bowl. Sitting in Ichiraku Ramen's restaurant, Hinata has eaten more than 20 bowls of ramen in one breath. She was depressed and had to rely on food to resolve it. Gulp, gulp, gulp. After drinking the soup of the ramen, Hinata lay on the table with a decadent face and didn't want to move at all. The uncle asked with concern, little girl, what's the matter? Are you heartbroken? Heartbroken? You're the one who's heartbroken. Your whole family is heartbroken. Hinata raised her head and glared at the uncle. She was about to speak back when she suddenly thought of something and quickly lowered her head with a guilty conscience. This is Otsutsuki Ichiraku. Face was once my only source of light. After losing Face, the world that I saw became a pitch-black hell. If there is no noodles in this world, Then I will create a world where Naruto eats noodles. Infinite noodles. I have something to do, so I'll go first. Hinata quickly paid the money and ran out of Ichiraku Ramen without looking back, vowing never to come back again. Walking on the streets of Shinobu with his head down, Hinata kicked away the small stones from time to time. Although Hinata didn't have to go out of the village to perform tasks because he was mistaken as Ninetales Jinchuriki. But after all, he was still a little depressed. Why is all this happening? Why should I take the blame for Naruto? Where's Danzo? Why don't you take the blame? Isn't this your job? If you really sealed Ninetales in my body, then forget it, but I can't even see the hair of Ninetales now. Recently, the village's task load has been very heavy, and there are almost no ninjas wandering on the street. Hinata walked forward with a lot on his mind and unknowingly walked to Naruto's downstairs. Hey, let's go up and sit. By the way, I'll see if the boss is lazy when working. Hinata walked to the door of Naruto's office and knocked on the door a few times, ready to inspect Naruto's work attitude. Come in. Hinata pushed the door open and entered. Tsunade was busy at his desk. Jinin was helping Tsunade organize all kinds of documents. She was also tired and sweating profusely. Tsunade looked up at Hinata and continued to work while casually asking, Kashida, what's the matter? Hinata shook his head and said, Nothing, Big sister, is there anything I can help you with? Tsunade said casually, It's okay. If you're bored, you can play with Tun over there. Tun heard the sound and ran over to Hinata. Hinata bent down and picked Tun up, almost drooling. You look so delicious. Tun struggled with all her might, but she was still unable to escape from Hinata's demonic claws. She was held in Hinata's arms and ruthlessly squeezed. After playing with Tun for a while, Hinata felt a little bored again. Kakashi went out of the village to perform a mission. Naruto was also busy practicing these days, and Jiraiya was fooling around somewhere. Shinobu's cockroaches were either performing missions or practicing hard recently. Only the salted fish Hinata had nothing to do. Hinata sat on the sofa with his chin in his hand, and after a while he fell asleep. Snore, Tsunade. I'm so busy here that I can't even take a break. You little bastard actually dared to run in front of me and sleep. Are you looking for death? Fu *k. Xiang. Chick. Tian. Yeah. Hinata sleepily turned over. After his eyes adjusted to the surrounding light, Hinata remembered that he was still in Naruto's office. Rubbing his eyes, Hinata asked blankly, What's wrong? Tsunade looked at the mountainous pile of documents in front of him and felt that his head was about to explode. In front of him, there was a little bastard with no eyesight, lying on the sofa and sleeping soundly. Forget it. Tsunade stood up from his seat and said casually, Kashida, do you want to go out for a drink? Okay. Hinata nodded and said, but I can't drink much, so I can only drink a little. Jinin hurriedly stood in front of Tsunade and said in a panic, Tsunade-sama, these documents must be approved by today. Tsunade pressed Jinin on the chair and said with a chuckle, Then I'll leave this to you, Jinin-chan. Tsunade and Tsunade went to the izakaya together, and Tsunade ordered a pot of sake and a few dishes. Sigh. Hinata, I really envy you. Tsunade drank a few glasses of sake and said helplessly, It's all because of that old bastard Jiraiya. He insisted on dragging me back to be Naruto. Now I have to face a lot of documents all day. It's so annoying. Hinata took a small sip and said with a depressed face, I have nothing to do. I'm bored to death these 2 days. Tsunade asked faintly, Do you want me to find something for you to do? Hinata quickly shook his head. No. Tsunade was surprised. Aren't you bored? Yeah. Hinata nodded and sighed. Even if I'm bored to death, I don't want to work. Let me be bored to death by myself. Don't worry about me. Tsunade was puzzled. Since you're bored, then find something to do? What else can you do? Continue to be bored? Hinata held his small face and said weakly, This is my dream life. Tsunade. What a life full of dreams. Suddenly thinking of something, Tsunade looked at Hinata and asked curiously, Hinata, do you have any dreams? Why does everyone who wants to be Naruto like to ask about other people's dreams? Then should I say, My dream is to be Naruto? Tsunade, please tell me your story. I'm a young lady whose parents are still alive, born in a wealthy family, and who has been praised since I was a child. What tragic story do I have to tell you? In this story called 5 Villages Armed Melee, Childhood Tragedy Tournament, I, Otsutsuki Hinata, was defeated. How can I compete to be Naruto without a tragic background? My dream. Hinata felt that the dream he once told the 3 generations was a bit too big. After thinking about it, Hinata sighed. Probably eating and waiting for death. Tsunade slammed the table and praised. What a great dream. Yes. Hinata continued weakly. This is a life that many people would be envious of. Tsunade reached out and pinched Hinata's small face, and said with a smile, so in order to help you realize your dream as soon as possible, I've decided to transfer you to be my secretary. What? Secretary? Isn't that the secretary's job when there's something to do, and when there's nothing to do? Ahem. Can I refuse? Tsunade sneered. What do you think? Hinata completely gave up struggling. But I don't know anything. It's okay. Tsunade said proudly. You just need to help me send the approved documents to the various departments of Shinobu. By the way, Konoha now has a medical class, an intelligence class, a secret signal class, a barrier class, a communication class, an interrogation class, a logistics department, a mission office, a ninja class, an umbu class, a school, a document management department, a confidential room, an archive room, and dozens of other departments. You need to send more than 1,000 documents every day. Tsunade smiled mischievously. How is it? It's a very easy job, right? Madandan. I'm so busy every day, and you're still showing off your lazy life in front of me? Are you trying to rebel? Chapter 167. Ha 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 ha. Hinata fell on the table and laughed. He felt that his whole life was gloomy. 2 days ago, Hyogo personally went to Tsunade and talked about Hinata. Shinobu couldn't clarify whether the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki was Naruto or Hinata, because the Rock Village has already determined that Hinata is the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki, and they spread it around the shinobi world, as if they were afraid that others didn't know. Although Hinata is strong, he can't win against so many people. Even the 3 generations Reikage died under the siege of 10,000 ninjas, let alone Hinata. This isn't an alarmist talk. The fact that Hinata can pass the Nine-Tails chakra to others was personally investigated by the Rock Village's elite jonin, Kitsuchi. Now even the Sand Village has a tacit attitude. That is to say, they still don't know to what extent Hinata can do it. If he can only pass the Nine-Tails chakra to a few people, then it's nothing. But if he can pass it to thousands of people, or even tens of thousands of people, then the major shinobi villages will really gather tens of thousands of ninjas to besiege Hinata. So Hinata lived a lazy life in the village for 2 days. Although Hinata complained that he was bored, Hinata was very happy. So Hinata decided to stimulate Tsunade. Yo, Naruto's work is really busy. Look at me, I'm bored to death, life is really lonely. So Hinata's joy turned to sorrow. Ha 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 ha, Tsunade laughed happily and said proudly. Hinata-chan, remember to report to my office at 6 o'clock tomorrow morning. Hinata lay on the table motionless. He wished that time could go back, and he wouldn't be so proud anymore. Tsunade still has a lot of work to deal with, so he drank some wine to relax, and Tsunade returned to Naruto's office to deal with official business. After leaving the izakaya, Hinata walked home like a zombie. Before he entered the house, an umbu with a dog mask appeared beside Hinata. Hinata, this is the appointment letter given to you by Naruto-sama. And this mask really suits you, lackey. Hinata turned a blind eye and opened the door to go home. Haha. Konoha's efficiency can't be so fast, this umbu must be fake. The umbu coldly said. Hinata, are you going to disobey the order of Naruto-sama? Hinata sighed and helplessly took the appointment letter. The letter of appointment. A letter of appointment. You have to accept your fate once you receive it. Back in his room, Hinata washed up and fell asleep. My cute little bed, little quilt, little pillow, I'm going to leave you soon. Inheriting Kakashi's good tradition, Hinata decisively arrived 6 hours late the next day. and didn't report to Naruto's office until 12 o'clock at noon. Yo, big sister, good morning. I'm lost on the road of life. Tsunade lowered her head to work, and coldly said without raising her head. What time did I tell you to report last night, En? Hinata recalled. And it should be 6 o'clock in the morning. Tsunade coldly said. What time is it now? Hinata was already prepared. He took out an alarm clock from the ninja bag and looked at it, and happily said, It's only 5:30 in the morning. Big sister, I actually came half an hour early to report. Are you surprised? Tsunade. In fact, Tsunade asked Hinata to come over to be her secretary. Not really to ask Hinata to help her, but Hinata was too angry yesterday, and she had to teach Hinata a lesson to make Tsunade's mind clear. A 12-year-old child, fighting and killing is okay, but if it's dealing with the official affairs of the village, it's far from enough. A 12-year-old child doesn't seem to be suitable for fighting and killing, right? Hey. Tsunade pointed to a stack of documents on the right side of the office, and lightly snorted. Hinata, send these documents to the corresponding departments. If there are new reports from those departments, you also bring them back to me. Hee. If you didn't say that it's a stack of documents, I would have thought it was a mountain. Hinata sighed and said with a bitter face. Big sister, can't you let the people from those departments come and get it themselves? Tsunade lightly snorted. Now everyone is very busy, and if we delay a little bit of time, we don't know how much less work we can do. You are the only one in the village who is free. If you don't do it, who will do it? Hinata stood at attention and said with a serious face. Big sister, please give me the highest level task in the village at present. Assassinating the Kage of the 5 great ninja villages is also fine. Tsunade pointed to the stack of documents and lightly said. Now send these documents to the various departments in the village. That is the highest level task. Go. Yes. Shadow clone jutsu. Hinata made a hand seal, and 4 shadow clones appeared, bowed 90 degrees, and said with gratitude. I'll leave everything to you. Leave everything to us. The 4 shadow clones picked up the documents and rushed out of Naruto's office. The shadow clone jutsu is very interesting. The shadow clone jutsu will record the mood, state, and thoughts of the main body when using the shadow clone jutsu. Before Hinata uses the shadow clone jutsu, if he hypnotizes himself in his mind that he is a very hardworking person, then the shadow clone jutsu will become a very hardworking Hinata. Because of the spiritual energy, everything will be left to the shadow clone jutsu. As for the fatigue and memory caused by removing the shadow clone jutsu, Hinata feels that he should be able to bear it after sleeping. Big sister, in order to avoid the fatigue caused by removing the shadow clone jutsu, can I sleep in your office? Tsunade. Hinata continued. In fact, this kind of work should be done by Naruto. His shadow clone jutsu is very good. Tsunade didn't want to talk to Hinata at all now. This little girl is too hateful. I have to think of a way to cure her. Hinata sat on the sofa and ate an apple. The 4 shadow clones came back and forth to deliver the documents, and sometimes they would buy some delicious food for Hinata. Although he will definitely be a bit tired after removing the shadow clone jutsu, Hinata can at least laze around for a long time before removing it. Jinnin brought over a large pile of documents and said softly, although a lot of big things happened in Shinobu, in just a short while, the mission reports in the village have already piled up like a mountain. Tsunade sighed. We can only deal with it bit by bit. Hinata curiously came over and asked. Many of the reports are just small things, right? Can't we just let the people from the departments deal with it themselves? Jinnin explained. Although some of them are small things, Naruto has to look at them personally. Tsunade picked up a stack of documents and flipped through it, puzzled. Shinobu Serious Alert Facility? The name of this place has been changed, right? Jinnin explained. Yes. It used to be called Special Criminal Ninja Detention Facility. But now there are fewer and fewer ninjas who commit serious crimes. As the size of the facility continues to shrink, the name has been changed. Hinata raised his hand. I know this place. It's not far from Shinobu Village. I heard that people who are related to murder or leaking confidential information are locked up there. Chapter 168. Hinata handed a document to Tsunade. Tsunade didn't even look at it, he just picked up the seal and stamped it. Next, Hinata obediently put away the document in his hand, then picked up the next document and handed it to Tsunade. Tsunade continued to stamp. And so on. Being a Hokage is really a boring job. Something like stamping, any research machine can do it. Naruto advisor is still the best. Xuan Xiaochun and Mito Monitis are probably drinking tea, eating pastries, and talking about life and ideals. And once the village is in danger, Naruto must rush to the front line to fight. Naruto advisor, even the 4 shinobi world warlords can stay in the village, and it is said that they lived until the legend of Naruto period. TSK. Flipping through the documents, a piece of paper floated out from the pile. Tsunade picked it up and looked at it. Is it a prescription? As if suddenly thinking of something, Tsunade suddenly turned to Jinin and shouted, Jinin, immediately go and call all the idle jonins in the village. Jinin was surprised. Ha! Tsunade shouted, go. Yes. Hinata leaned over and asked curiously, Big sister, what is this? Tsunade's face was dignified and said in a deep voice, wait until all the jonins are here. If this matter is not handled well, Shinobu will have a big problem. Tsunade picked up the document on the table and carefully looked at it. Hinata stood aside and saw the name Mizuki in the large pile of names. Mizuki? Mizuki can be regarded as a small boss in the novice village of Naruto. Not only did he provide Naruto with a large amount of EXP to level up, but he also helped Naruto learn the shadow clone technique by completing the quest given by Shuei-mu. In online gaming novels, Shuei-mu could be considered as the person who gave the main character a hidden quest. Hinata had fought many bosses, such as Zabuza, My Love, Orochimaru, dried persimmon mackerel, Itachi Uchiha, and so on. However, Hinata had missed out on the beginner's village's mini-boss, Shuei-mu. Only after defeating Mizuki can Hinata's ninja career be truly complete. After a while, Asuma and Sunset walked into Naruto's office. Tsunade handed the documents to the two of them and said indifferently, take a look at it yourselves. Sunset glanced at the document and asked doubtfully, Shinobu's security facility? Tsunade asked in a serious voice, what's the situation with the guy named Mizuki? Asuma recalled and explained, that was a few months ago. As a Chunin teacher of the ninja school, Mizuki used Naruto to steal the Book of Seals. Sunset continued, according to the mission report at that time, the only perpetrator should be Mizuki. This matter should have been solved already, right? Tsunade said in a deep voice, there may be a bigger conspiracy behind this matter. This is the clue. Tsunade handed the prescription to Asuma and Sunset. Tsunade continued, this is what Mizuki hid when he was imprisoned by Shinobu's security facility. At that time, it was only regarded as something written casually and didn't attract much attention. Jinin wondered, Tsunade-sama, what the hell is going on? Tsunade's eyes were dignified and slowly said, I don't know, but in the information we got from Shinobu's village before, we found that the handwriting on some of the information is very similar to the handwriting on that paper, Sunset said seriously. In other words, Orochimaru may be behind this matter. Hinata scratched his face and vaguely recalled the general plot of this matter. When Hinata read the original Naruto in his previous life, he almost skipped the original TV story. It was only when he was chatting with other Naruto fans that he talked about Mizuki. It turned out that this guy worships Orochimaru very much. Just like Kimimaro, he is one of the many fans of Orochimaru. But as for the specific development of the incident, Hinata didn't know. Tsunade said solemnly, this possibility can't be ruled out. Even if a Chunin stole the Scroll of Seals, he can't interpret the contents of the Scroll of Seals. But if Orochimaru is behind this, then everything can be explained. Speaking of this, Tsunade's momentum suddenly changed and he shouted, Asuma, Kurenai Hinata. The three of you immediately go to the serious security facility to interrogate Mizuki and investigate the ins and outs of this matter. Ha! Hinata froze for a moment. Do I have to go too? Go. Yes. Using the body flicker technique, Hinata left Naruto's office, followed behind Asuma and Sunset, and ran in the direction of Shinobu's serious security facility. Although the name is a bit long, it's actually Shinobu's prison, responsible for imprisoning some criminals who have no value, and usually do some hard labor. As for those criminals who still have value, they are generally handed over to Ibiki Marino for torture, or handed over to Yamanaka Inoichi to search their brain memories. Shinobu's serious security facility was built on a lake island a few miles away from Shinobu village. Hinata, Asuma, and Sunset ran to the small lake, and the chunin in charge of guarding the prison lowered the drawbridge. Hinata and the other two quickly crossed the drawbridge and ran toward the prison on the island. Sunset turned around and reminded, "Be careful, the situation is not right." Asuma responded, It's too quiet." Hinata, a new chunin, had no right to speak, and carefully followed the two without saying a word. Walking into the prison on the island, two fat men more than 2 meters tall stood in the middle of the central hall, staring fiercely at Hinata and the other two. Hinata looked at them a few times. These two fat men were quite cute, and they looked like they didn't have a high IQ. Asuma casually joked, "Oh, it's so moving. I didn't expect that there would be people here to welcome us." One of the fat men said, "You're most welcome." Hinata looked up at Asuma and asked curiously, "Asuma-sensei, do you know these two people?" Asuma said lightly, "These are the very famous stupid brothers, Kazakage and Reikage." Hinata was speechless. Hinata had some recollection of these two names. The main thing was that these two were quite powerful. Hinata vaguely remembered that when he discussed the plot with Naruto fans, these two seemed to be Tsunade's underlings. And looking at the nervous faces of Asuma and Sunset, it was clear that these two were not ordinary people. Rustle. The sound of dense footsteps came and Hinata looked up. There were hundreds of people standing in the corridors built on the walls. Sunset shouted in a deep voice, "Asuma." Asuma looked around and said sternly, "This welcome party is a bit too big." Another sound of footsteps came again. "Don't worry, the welcome party has just begun." Hinata looked up and saw Mizuki-sensei, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. Sunset stood in front of Hinata and said in a deep voice, "Hinata, immediately rush out and ask Naruto-sama for help." Hinata scratched his head and said, "Help? Is that necessary? A few days ago, I developed a new ninjutsu, and was about to find someone to test its power. I didn't expect someone to take the initiative to come to me so soon." While talking, Hinata had already condensed Chakra's fist. Chapter 169. Mizuki stood in the middle of a group of prisoners, exuding a kind of aura called Prison Big Brother from head to toe, faintly surrounded by the prisoners. "Whoa. It seems that Mizuki is doing well in the prison." Asuma glanced at Mizuki and said lightly, "Your image is completely different from before." Hinata looked at Mizuki curiously when he heard this. In the past, Shueimu's figure was thin and he looked very elegant. At this time, Mizuki was full of muscles, and his expression was slightly ferocious. In Naruto, a world full of cheats, Mizuki's life can be regarded as one of the few inspirational stories. Originally, Mizuki was just a transparent chunin with no sense of existence, but he was determined to stand out in the ninja world. In the end, Mizuki was finally tempted by Orochimaru, and became a loyal follower of Orochimaru. After being caught for stealing the Scroll of Seals, Mizuki didn't give up hope and worked hard in the prison, and eventually became the leader of all the prisoners, and planned the collective escape. Mizuki's story can be made into a Naruto version of Prison Storm. Fujin and Raikami said with a ferocious expression, "You are all our tributes." Mizuki's mouth evoked a sneer and said lightly, "Do it." Asuma and Sunset were in a defensive posture at the same time. "Ahahaha. Kill. Kill the Shinobu ninja." The prisoners around shouted crazily, and each of them was extremely excited. Finally, they could escape from this damn prison. Fujin and Raikami jumped up at the same time and rushed towards Asuma and Sunset, clenching their fists and smashing them in the face. Asuma and Sunset dodged, and were about to use hand seals to cast ninjutsu to counterattack. The prisoners around jumped down from the high platform and rushed madly towards Asuma and Sunset. Hinata was holding two Senjutsu chakra fists, staring blankly at Asuma, but he didn't move. Asuma shouted anxiously, "Hinata, why are you looking at me?" While talking, Asuma and Sunset had already started fighting with the prisoners. Hinata showed a trace of embarrassment and said naively, "Asuma-sensei, last time, when I fought Itachi and Ghost Mackerel, I misunderstood your words, so I attacked you in advance, and made you in a sorry state." After a pause, Hinata asked, "Asuma-sensei, can I do it now?" Asuma glanced at Asuma's head and said and shouted anxiously, "Asuma, to do it." To Asasasma. Asma of the of Asasma of Asasasma of seals of seals of seals of seals of 8 trigrams of 8 mountain to 2 and destructive attack mountain to the and Asasasasasasasan. And its destructive power 8 fist Asma. And Asasoff Asto toe to shoulders and Asus Asaki and Asasasma to and toe. Hinata replied loudly, "Okay. Then I'll do it." Whoosh. With a leap, Hinata leaped into the air. In midair, Hinata adjusted the natural energy in the chakra fists, causing the 3 types of energy to be out of balance. Then he punched downwards rapidly. Immortal technique, punch bag-sized fists. I'll call it this name for now. I'll change it when I think of a better name in the future. The 2 chakra fists left his hands and blasted downwards at an extremely fast speed. Boom, boom. The azure blue chakra fists hit the ground, and the unbalanced energy exploded instantly, causing the whole prison to shake violently. The rocks on the ground exploded, and debris flew everywhere. Through the vision of the Byakugan, Hinata could clearly see that the chakra fists had created 2 deep pits of about 10 meters in diameter on the ground. The shockwave from the explosion sent everyone flying. Even Asuma, Sunset, and the brothers Fujin and Raijin were not spared. "On my hand. Ah! My leg, help!" Painful howls and cries for help came from all around. At that moment, all the prisoners had rushed over, and Chakra's fists had exploded in the crowd. Almost no one was spared. Thud. Hinata landed on the ground and looked around. He was extremely satisfied with his ninjutsu. 666. Although the punch bag-sized fists did not have the penetrative power of the mountain breaker, the area of impact of the ninjutsu was far greater than that of the mountain breaker and air palm. And Hinata had not yet tried to adjust the ratio, so the destructive power of this ninjutsu was far from reaching the limit. In Hinata's imagination, spiritual energy, physical energy, and natural energy were like sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal. Depending on the ratio, the destructive power of the explosion would be different. If this idea was true, then the power of the punch bag-sized fist ninjutsu would be improved. Hinata suddenly scratched his face in embarrassment. Asuma and Sunset were lying on the ground in a group of prisoners. They looked very embarrassed and seemed to have suffered a little injury. Hinata dared to swear to God that when he used the punch bag-sized fist, Hinata deliberately avoided Asuma and Sunset. He didn't expect that the 2 of them would still be injured by the aftermath of the explosion. It seemed to be the same last time. It was fate. Hinata quickly trotted over and guiltily helped Asuma and Sunset up. "Asuma-sensei, Kuroto-sensei, are you okay?" "I'm really sorry about that." Hinata bowed 90 degrees and sincerely apologized. "This ninjutsu is a newly developed ninjutsu, and it's also the first time I used it in actual combat, so I really don't know how powerful this ninjutsu is." Asuma rubbed his waist and complained, "Hey, when a ninjutsu is developed, you have to find a place to test it." Hinata stuck out his tongue and said with an embarrassed face, "I did test it once before, but that time it was fired into the sky, so it's hard to judge the power of the explosion. The main reason was that his father Hyogo didn't want to be a target. It's all his fault." He. Hinata smirked without any psychological burden, trying to muddle through. "It hurts. Oni-san. And I'm very hungry." The 2 guys patted their bodies and leisurely stood up. They didn't seem to be injured at all. Ding. A light bulb lit up on Hinata's little head. That's right. Hinata's mind flashed. In his previous life, he vaguely heard people mention that the 2 guys, Wind God and Thunder God, seemed to have rebelled with Mizuki for food. And the 2 of them were extremely afraid of Tsunade. Later, As soon as Tsunade appeared, the two fat men immediately ran back to the prison by themselves. Hinata smiled and said, "It's much easier to deal with them if they have a weakness." Sunset looked at Wind God and Thunder God with dignified eyes. After hearing Hinata's words, she asked with some doubt, "What?" Hinata took out a scroll from the ninja bag and said with a sweet smile, "Kuroto-sensei, watch me." With that, Hinata took a step forward. Wind God and Thunder God seemed to have some impression of Hinata. Seeing this, they couldn't help but take a step back. Hinata jumped into the air, stretched out his hand to open the scroll, and quickly made hand seals with both hands and shouted, "Open!" Looking at Wind God and Thunder God with a smile, Hinata shouted, "Big fat guys, take this." Ninjutsu, food descending from the sky technique. Asma Sunset. Chapter 170. Cakes, biscuits, tricolored meatballs, octopus meatballs, grilled squid, fried pork chops, taiyaki, crepes, pudding, all kinds of delicacies fell from the sky, sparkling like little stars, attracting the attention of every foodie on the scene. Even Hinata was drooling. "It's food, big brother. It smells so good." Fujin and Thujin moved at a speed that did not match their fat bodies. They caught all the food before it fell to the ground. Munch, munch, munch. Fujin and Thujin sat on the ground, munching on the food. Their faces were filled with bliss, and they had completely forgotten that they wanted to break out of prison. "Big brother, this food is so delicious." "Idiot, eat more if it's delicious." "I see. You are indeed my big brother." Thud. Hinata landed lightly on the ground and walked to the two fat men. He rubbed his chin with his thumb and index finger and asked with a smile, "How is it? Is it delicious?" "Munch, munch, munch." The two fat men continued eating and didn't pay attention to Hinata at all. "Hey, I say you two." Hinata looked at Fujin and Thujin from head to toe and smiled. "If the two of you want to eat more delicacies, why don't you become my followers?" Fujin and Thujin had no moral integrity at all. Their 2-meter-tall fat bodies immediately fell to their knees and kowtowed to Hinata. "Big sister. Lizard." Hinata stretched out her small hand and patted the two fat men and said with a smile, "Let me tell you, my family is the richest in Konoha. If you follow me, you can eat all kinds of delicacies. Even if you eat until your stomach bursts, it doesn't matter." Thujin suddenly looked at Fujin and asked innocently, "Big brother, what about big brother?" Fujin scolded, "Idiot. If we follow big brother, we have to travel so far to eat delicacies. If we follow big sister, we can eat delicacies now. Of course we have to follow big sister." Thujin said with admiration, "You are indeed my big brother." Hinata patted Fujin's head and said, "Well said. But you can only have me as your leader in the future. As your followers, if you don't follow the code of brotherhood, I won't give you any food to eat." The Kazekage and Reikage nodded again and again, grinning at Hinata. Hinata grinned and said, "Okay, you two get up first." Asuma looked around and exclaimed, "Not good. Shueimu ran away." Hinata waved her hand and said indifferently, "Just leave that kind of small character to me." "Sensei, Asma sensei, I'll leave him to you." Asma. And Thujin and Thujin and Thujin. And Fuss and Thujin. And Hinata. With Hinata's strength, it is not a problem to deal with Shueimu. But for Shinobu, the most important thing is to watch these prisoners and not let them commit crimes. Hinata took out a scroll from the ninja tool bag and tempted Fujin. "Thujin, let's go. Big sister will take you to fight small monsters. As long as you defeat the small monsters, this will be your reward. How about it?" Thujin said innocently, "Thank you, big sister." "Big brother, big sister is so good to us." Fujin scolded, "Idiot. Hurry up and chase." Hinata activated the Byakugan and shouted, "You two follow me." Mujin didn't run too far. Hinata caught up with Fujin and Thujin in a short while. Before going to prison, Mizuki was just an ordinary cannon fodder chunin. He has been training in prison for so long, and now he is at best an elite chunin. Although Hinata doesn't put Mujin in his eyes, in order to make his ninja career more complete, he still wants to beat this guy up. Hinata surrounded Mujin in a triangular formation with Fujin and Thujin, blocking all of Mujin's escape routes. Mujin looked at Hinata with cold eyes and said hatefully, I didn't expect that in just a few months, you have grown to this extent. Should I say that you are worthy of being a top student? Hinata nodded and said, Well said. Mujin, I am mocking you, can't you hear it? Hinata looked at Mujin indifferently and said slowly, Mujin-sensei, after all, you have taught me for a while, I don't want to beat you too badly. Go back with me, you have no way to escape. Mujin's face was ferocious. As if venting his anger, he roared, Go back? Back to that cold, damp prison where you can't see the sun? How can a talented young lady like you understand the pain of ordinary ninjas like us? You have been valued by the entire shinobu since you were born. You have a powerful bloodline limit, and you can learn any ninjutsu at will. Even if you make a mistake, others will turn a blind eye and turn a blind eye. But do you know how difficult it is for a ninja like me to survive in the village? Hinata was silent when he heard this. Mujin is an ordinary chunin like Mujin. There is nothing special about him in shinobu, and the higher-ups will hardly look at him. They don't have the right to be willful. It's okay to work as a teacher, but if they go out to perform tasks, they have to struggle on the line of life and death almost every day. Hinata is not completely ignorant of these things. At the beginning of the ninja village, there was no such thing as a civilian ninja. It was the second Naruto who established the ninja school, and gave the civilians the right to learn ninjutsu. The rise of the civilian ninja divided the power of the ninja family. But the ninja family has a lot of people, and they have mastered all kinds of powerful secret techniques. Even if the power is divided equally, they are still the higher-ups in the village. So in the eyes of some extreme civilian ninjas, the ninja family is suppressing them and sending them to perform all kinds of tasks. This is a contradiction of class, and it is not something that can be solved by Hinata in a few words. And from the standpoint of the ninja family, Hinata can't blame Mujin for anything. Mujin just betrayed Shinobu and wanted to join Orochimaru. He didn't steal the rice of the Hyuga family. No one is wrong. It was as if Pain had said, You have your justice and I have mine. If it weren't for the fact that Mujin is a small boss in the novice village, Hinata wouldn't be interested in him at all. Wind God, Thunder God. Take him back. Okay, big sister. Mujin's face was ferocious and he shouted, Wind God, Thunder God. Don't you want to go to Orochimaru's place to enjoy the delicacies? Hinata sneered. Hey, even Orochimaru's Shinobu village was destroyed by me. How can Orochimaru have the money to treat us to a meal? Hinata held the seal scroll in his hand and said, Wind God, Thunder God. Mujin is lying to you. You two can only eat the real delicacies if you follow me. The Fool brothers heard this and glared at Mujin. For the sake of Hinata giving them so many delicacies, they felt that Hinata's words were more reliable. Brother, I'll hit his stomach. Okay, then I'll hit his head. Bang, bang. Mujin couldn't resist and fell on the ground. Chapter 171. Hinata still has some sympathy for Mizuki's experience. Another poor child who was harmed by the ninja system. Heart higher than the sky, life thinner than paper. In life, there is nothing wrong with wanting to stand out. It seems that there is nothing wrong with joining Orochimaru. Isn't it just job hopping? But offending the protagonist of Naruto, Uzumaki Naruto, is your fault. You don't have any eyesight at all. When Mizuki was sent back to Shinobu's high-security facility, the place was already surrounded by Shinobu ninjas. The prisoners were also sent back to the prison and honestly locked up. Seeing Hinata coming over, Asuma complained. The prison has been destroyed beyond recognition. Who knows how much it will cost to repair it? Hinata pretended not to hear, waved his hand, and let Fujin and Raijin throw Mizuki on the ground, raised his chin and said, Hey, Asuma, Sensei, Mizuki has been caught. The mission is complete. Asuma looked at Fujin and Raijin standing behind Hinata and said lightly, They are also criminals, they must be returned to the prison. Hinata thought for a moment, took out the seal scroll from the ninja tool bag, opened it, formed a seal with both hands, and shouted, Open. Hey, you guys take it and eat it. I will ask Big Sis later to see if she can transfer the two of you to me as my subordinates. Raijin ate in big mouthfuls. Fujin looked up and asked, Big Sis? Big Sis, who is your Big Sis? Hinata explained softly, my Big Sis is Shinobu's 5th generation Naruto Tsunade-sama. Big Sis Tsunade? Fujin and Raijin exclaimed at the same time. The fat on their body trembled in fear. When the two of them were young, they were beaten by Tsunade many times. However, the fact that they were still alive after being beaten up by Tsunade since they were young was enough to prove that they were very strong. These two little brothers were not at a loss. Hinata didn't care about this and reminded them. Oh right, the two of you might have to stay in prison for a while. Thunder God raised his head and asked innocently, Big Sister, will you still send us delicious food? Hinata smiled and comforted them. Don't worry. The God of Wind glared at the God of Thunder and scolded. Big Sister is so loyal, how could she forget us? The two silly fat men finished a large pile of food and consciously followed the crowd into the prison. They returned to their previous cell and sat down obediently. Hinata looked up at Asma and asked curiously, Teacher Asma, I think these two people are quite innocent. What kind of serious crime did they commit to be locked up? Asma explained, I heard that when they were doing a mission, they killed all their companions because of the problem of food. Later, they were subdued by the people around them with great difficulty. But these two guys, as long as there is food, they won't mess around. They were quite obedient before. This time, they should have been bewitched by Mizuki. Hinata nodded. The two fat men, Fujin and Raijin, didn't seem to have a high IQ. As long as they could be bought with some food, it was indeed very risky to take them on a mission. However, looking at the two people's fear of Tsunade, it was obvious that strength could also make them obedient. Sasuke followed Orochimaru. Naruto was about to follow Jiraiya on a trip, and Kakashi also had a mission to perform. If he could have Fujin and Raijin as teammates, Hinata could also go anywhere. Although performing a mission was very tiring, compared to being Tsunade's little secretary. The pile of reports in Naruto's office made Hinata's scalp tingle. However, they had killed their teammates and committed serious crimes. Hinata didn't know if Tsunade would release them. Asma threw the cigarette but on the ground and stepped on it. He took out another cigarette from the cigarette box and said in a relaxed tone, We don't need to do anything here. Let's go back and report to Tsunade-sama. Hinata looked at Sunset with a distressed look and kindly reminded, Teacher Asma, smoking will have a bad effect on the fetus. If you want to marry Teacher Hong, it's best that you quit smoking. Sunset blushed and said shyly, Hinata, don't talk nonsense. Asma held the cigarette in his mouth and said awkwardly, Ha 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 ha, is that so? Hinata spread his hands helplessly. Maybe this is the reason why your child Yufei will look like Uchiha Shursui in the future. Naruto's office. Asma was different from Kakashi. He was very serious when reporting work. Kakashi could have finished it in 2 sentences, but Asma took more than 10 minutes to report. Ha! Hinata yawned and Asma finally finished. Tsunade nodded and said in a deep voice, Shuemu will be interrogated by Ibixi. Tsunade turned to Hinata and said faintly, Fujin and Raijin aren't people who are easily obedient. Their personalities can be easily used by the enemy. You will have to take a certain risk if you team up with them. Tsunade knew Fujin and Raijin very well, and he was also very clear about Hinata's thoughts. Fujin and Raijin's strength was unquestionable. If they could be used by Shinobu, it would be a good thing. They were not released before because no one could subdue them. Once Fujin and Raijin acted recklessly, let alone carrying out the mission, even his own people would suffer. After a pause, Tsunade continued, and they have committed serious crimes. Hinata nodded. Tsunade's words were easy to understand. Releasing Fujin and Raijin only required Naruto to say a word. But would Hinata be able to make these two obedient? Fujin and Raijin had killed their teammates. If they were released, how would he explain it to Shinobu's ninjas? Laws and rules must be strictly enforced to be binding. Once breaking the rules started, it would be easy to cause trouble later. Hinata thought for a moment, scratched his face and slowly said, I can beat them a few times first and let them see my strength. And those two big fat guys don't have high IQ. They are very afraid of Big Sis. As long as Big Sis warns them again, it will be fine. As for the serious crimes they have committed before, they helped me catch Mizuki this time, and they were quite obedient in prison before. In the future, they can also work for Shinobu. It will be a good deed to atone for their crimes. Hinata was not an insensible person. He finally added, but it depends on the village's decision. Tsunade turned his eyes to Asuma and Sunset, and asked faintly, "What do you think?" Asuma said indifferently, "Those two guys. As long as someone can keep an eye on them, there will be no problem." After saying that, Asuma looked at Hinata and couldn't help but complain. But if Fujin, Raijin, and Hinata form a team, Shinobu's food street will suffer. Sunset heard this and chuckled. As long as they don't pay on credit, the three of them can also help Shinobu's economic efficiency. Asuma smiled and said, "That's right." Hinata. "Great. You two are ganging up to exclude me. Wait until you are alone in the future." Tsunade thought carefully. Fujin and Raijin have been imprisoned for many years. If they perform well in prison, it is not impossible to release them and form a team with Hinata. But Tsunade said faintly, "This matter needs to be discussed in the village. Asuma, Kurenai, you two go back first." "Yes." Asuma and Sunset responded and then disappeared with the blink technique. Tsunade turned his eyes to Hinata and snorted, "Hinata, stay here and help me organize the documents." Chapter 172. The reason why Hinata doesn't want to be Naruto is because in his previous life, he knew how heavy Naruto's work was. When Naruto was the 7th generation, he was so busy that he couldn't even go home. Of course, it may also be because Naruto still thinks about Sasuke. Hinata expressed his sympathy for himself in the manga. Humph. Sunflower must not be Naruto's biological son. Today Hinata saw Naruto's work with his own eyes. At this time, there was only one thought in Hinata's mind. I don't want to be Naruto. Shinobu has tens of thousands of ninjas. Some of them work in various departments of Shinobu. Some of them go out to perform tasks, and some of them are Umbu, directly responsible for Naruto. Suppose Shinobu has 10,000 ordinary ninjas out to perform tasks every day, and 2,000 Umbu ninjas go out to perform tasks every day. On average, 4 ninjas form a team, so there are 3,000 teams. Generally, only protection tasks are time-consuming. Other tasks can be completed in a few days. This means that Naruto has to deal with hundreds or even thousands of task reports every day. Ordinary tasks only need Naruto's stamp, but for some important tasks, Naruto must strictly review and check for possible missing information. Once a ninja fails to perform a task, Naruto is responsible for negotiating with the client. Either he replaces the ninja to continue the task, or he pays the client a large amount of compensation for breach of contract. In short, whether the task is successful or not, the client must give Shinobu a 5-star rating. Even if half a star is missing, Naruto will send the Umbu to have a chat with the client. Let the Umbu and the client talk about how many people they have killed in their life, how miserable those people died, how painful the screams were before they died, and so on. It's just a talk, it's not really killing people. Don't be afraid, come on, give a 5-star rating. And this is only the work after the task is completed. If it's an important task, or a task for an important ninja, Naruto has to deal with it personally. In addition to the daily tasks, Naruto also has to deal with the affairs of various departments in the village. No matter how big or small, it needs to be reported to Naruto. Those reports were long and smelly. It was as if one word was missing from the report, it would show that they had done less work than other departments. And these are only the internal affairs of Shinobu. There are many allies in the country of fire, and Shinobu also has many allies in the ninja world. Diplomatic affairs also needs to be handled by Naruto personally. Including contact with the daimyo of fire needs to be handled by Naruto, personally. The commission for daily tasks to be completed is daily. Is. Every year, the country of fire gives Shinobu a large amount of military funds to maintain the operation of Shinobu. The reason why the Sand Village agreed to Orochimaru's plan to collapse Shinobu is because after the defeat of the Third World War, the daimyo of the Country of Wind reduced the military funds of the Sand Village, causing the Sand Village to have a cash flow and have to reduce the number of ninjas. If the Sand Village can defeat Shinobu, maybe they can get more funds. Naruto and the daimyo can be regarded as one in charge of military affairs, and the other in charge of politics. Although the daimyo doesn't have any military force, they control the politics and economy of a country. The relationship between the ninja village and the daimyo is actually an employment relationship. The daimyo spends money to hire the ninja village to protect their country, and the ninja village can also maintain its relative independence. Ninjas have their own rules, and those who break the rules are called trash. Even if they're rebellious ninjas, they rarely do things like robbing, and more often they earn commissions by performing tasks. Therefore, it's rare for a ninja village to threaten the daimyo. Once they do, it will affect the reputation of all ninjas, and even become the public enemy of the ninja world. Even if it's an evil person like Orochimaru, facing the daimyo of the Land of Rice, it's more of a win-win situation. At most, it's a subtle threat. It's already late at night, and a large pile of documents was sent to Naruto's office. Hinata handed one by one to Tsunade, and Tsunade didn't even look at them and directly stamped them. Jinin was responsible for sorting the documents. The three cooperated very well, and Hinata and Tsunade didn't even need to use their brains. This is Naruto's job. No wonder even people like Hashirama and Uzumaki Naruto can become Naruto. Giving the work that requires brain work to others, Naruto only needs to learn how to stamp. Hinata swore in his heart that he must become Naruto's advisor in the future. Naruto's advisor actually doesn't have much power. When Naruto was in power, Naruto's advisor couldn't even mobilize ninjas privately. The existence of Naruto's advisor is actually to supervise Naruto and prevent Naruto from monopolizing power and making wrong decisions. In short, Naruto is in charge of ninja affairs, and Naruto's affairs are managed by Naruto's advisor. In addition, once Naruto dies, Naruto's advisor can temporarily take over Naruto's work, and even have the right to recommend the next Naruto. Don't look at Danzo jumping up and down all day long. Without Naruto's advisor's approval, Danzo can't become Naruto. It's just that Naruto's advisor has no power in his hands, so he was threatened by Danzo. After the death of 3 generations, Jiraiya was still in the village, so Zhuan Shaochun and Mito Monitis had enough confidence to confront Danzo. It's just that after Pain attacked the village, Tsunade was seriously injured and in a coma, Jiraiya also died, and Danzo had no one to keep Danzo in check, so Danzo became the acting Naruto. Compared to Naruto, the job of Naruto's advisor is simply Hinata's dream. It was more than 11 o'clock in the middle of the night. Tsunade stretched and said weakly, "I'm finally done today." Hinata touched his stomach and suggested, "Big sis, Sister Jinin, let's go eat supper together." Jinin said with some worry, "Eating at night will make you fat." Jinin has reached the age of marriage, so she is particularly concerned about her figure. However, Hinata and Tsunade have no concerns in this regard at all. Tsunade said boldly, "Let's go. After being busy for so long, I'm already hungry." Hinata looked at Jinin and said temptingly, "Sister Jinin, are you really not going? Shinobu has a lot of delicious food. For example, tricolored meatballs, octopus meatballs, grilled squid, fried pork chops, taiyaki crepes. Wow. I'm drooling just thinking about it." Tempted by Hinata, this little foodie, Jinin couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Rumble. Her honest stomach betrayed Jinin mercilessly. Hinata took Jinin's hand and said with a smile, "Let's go. Sister Jinin. Big sis and I are going to eat delicious food. Leaving you alone, we will feel guilty." Tsunade chuckled and said, "Let's go together, Jinin." Yes. Chapter 173. It has been more than 10 days since Tsunade returned to the village, and the negotiations with the Sand Village were coming to an end. As early as the day after Tsunade returned to the village, the Land of Fire appointed Tsunade as the 5th Naruto of Shinobu Hidden Village, and officially announced it to the ninja world. However, during this period of time, Sasuke defected, and then escorted the Ichibi Jinchuriki back to the country. Tsunade had to familiarize himself with the village affairs as soon as possible, and the ceremony to succeed Naruto was delayed again and again. 9th of September. Countless ninjas and villagers of Shinobu gathered in front of the Naruto Tower, looking up at the valiant Tsunade standing on the rooftop of Naruto Tower. Xuan Shaochun handed the Naruto hat to Tsunade and solemnly said, "Shinobu, please." Tsunade took the Naruto hat and put it on his head, looking down at the ninjas and villagers below, and said with a loud voice, "From today onwards, I, Tsunade, am the 5th Naruto of Shinobu Ninja Village." Tsunade-sama, the 5th Naruto-sama. The villagers and ninjas cheered loudly with excitement. The ceremony to succeed Naruto wasn't that complicated. It was nothing more than gathering everyone and telling them, "I am the 5th Naruto, and you have to listen to me in the future." At this point, the Naruto succession ceremony was over. Tsunade returned to the office, threw the hat to Jinin, and sat behind the desk and began to busy himself. Hinata stood aside and was responsible for handing the documents to Tsunade to stamp. Tsunade's work today was a lot more leisurely. Some time ago, he mainly familiarized himself with the village affairs and dealt with the official affairs piled up during the absence of Naruto. Hinata handed over a document. Tsunade was about to stamp it when he suddenly exclaimed softly, and his hand froze in the air. "Is this information from the country of Earth?" Hinata said with a shocked expression. "Wani-san, you actually read the content." Tsunade turned around and shouted, "I'm Naruto." "Here." Tsunade threw the document to Hinata and gloated, "It's about you." Hinata picked it up and gave it a quick glance. "Damn it. The Rock Hidden Village doesn't give up. There are always people who want to harm me. This intelligence report was sent by Shinobu's spy in the Earth Kingdom." The fact that it was placed in this pile of reports meant that this intelligence report wasn't of much value. All that was needed was for Naruto to stamp it with the words "This Emperor has read." However, this information had a lot to do with Hinata. The 5-tailed Jinchuriki of the Rock Hidden Village tried to pass the chakra of the tailed beast to an outsider, but the outsider was instantly killed by the chakra of the tailed beast. Originally, it was impossible for Shinobu's spy to inquire about this information, but the Rock Hidden Village took the initiative to disclose it. If the Rock Hidden Village's experiment was successful, Anoki would certainly choose to keep it a secret. But the experiment failed. Anoki's purpose of disclosing this incident was to point out the uniqueness of Hinata. The major ninja villages have been coveting the Hyuga family for a long time. In the past, Shinobu's Jinchuriki has always been an Uzumaki ninja, but this time it was Hinata of the Hyuga clan who could lend the 9 Tails chakra to an outsider. Obviously, Anoki's disclosure of this matter was a conspiracy against Shinobu, against the Hyuga clan, and against Hinata. Tsunade's face was serious, and he said in a deep voice, "If we continue to let the Rock Hidden Village create public opinion, not only will Shinobu be under a lot of pressure, but Hinata, an action against you will soon be launched." Jinin looked nervous. "Tsunade-sama, what are we going to do now? Even if we disclose the identity of Naruto, the Rock Hidden Village may not trust us." Tsunade said calmly, "This is not a matter of trust, but the problem of lending the 9 Tails chakra to an outsider. The major ninja villages don't care who Shinobu's 9 Tails Jinchuriki is. Anyway, everyone has a tailed beast, and they are not afraid of them. But Hinata's ability to lend the 9 Tails chakra to an outsider is the fundamental reason why the Rock Hidden Village is making such a big deal out of this." Hinata was also angry. Anoki, that old man, had a really bad conscience. Hinata proposed angrily, "Wani-san, let me take Naruto to the Rock Hidden Village. I want to have a good talk with the Tsuchikage. Doesn't he want to know why I can lend the 9 Tails chakra to an outsider? Then let 9 Tails tell him himself." Tsunade heard this and said softly, "Don't say things out of anger." Hinata said seriously, "I'm not saying things out of anger, I really plan to go with Naruto." Tsunade rubbed her temples and said weakly, "Don't mess around." After a pause, Tsunade explained, "The Rock Village's Tsuchikage Anoki is not an ordinary ninja. He can use Kekkei Genkai beyond the limit of Kekkei Genkai. He is also one of the few ninjas in the 5 major countries who can fly. Fighting with such a ninja, even if Naruto uses his tailed beast form, it will be difficult to win. And this way, it will be easy to drag the Land of Fire into the war. Hinata said, "Well, since Big Sister has said so, then I will bear with it for now. Wait for an opportunity in the future. I must let Tonari teach him a lesson. A golden wheel reincarnation explosion will teach you a lesson. Inoki must not have been beaten by society. He dares to scheme against me, Hinata? But Tonari doesn't have eyes now. This is a bit difficult to deal with." Tsunade heard this and said, "Who? Oh." Hinata shook his head again and again. "It's nothing, you heard wrong." Tsunade didn't pay attention to Hinata. She only thought that Hinata was angry. She held the report in her hand and murmured, "As for this matter, Shinobu, as the person involved, it is difficult to explain this matter clearly." Hinata passing the Nine-Tails chakra to others was witnessed by Kitsuchi of the Rock Hidden Village, and the Sand Hidden Village also had a tacit attitude. Now almost all the major ninja villages in the ninja world have recognized this matter as a fact. The reason why everyone hasn't taken action yet is that they are not sure to what extent Hinata can do, and also because they want to experiment. If Hinata can only pass the Nine-Tails chakra to a few people, then there is no need to fight for Hinata. If all the Jinchuriki can pass the power of the tailed beasts to others, then Hinata will be irrelevant. But now, the Rock Hidden Village has done the experiment and announced the results of the experiment to the ninja world. Therefore, several other ninja villages with tailed beasts should have finished the experiment called Tailed Beast Chakra Transmission by this time. Once all the experiments fail, they will soon collude with the Rock Hidden Village to discuss a plan to deal with Hinata. Tsunade suddenly turned to look at Hinata and asked, "Hinata, how many people can you pass the Nine-Tails chakra to?" Hinata scratched his head and said with some uncertainty, "In this case, it may be dozens of people, or hundreds of people. I'm not sure yet. But if the seal of the Nine-Tails is broken, then it will be powerful. I can probably pass it to tens of thousands of people at the same time." Tsunade instantly got up and exclaimed, "Tens of thousands of people." Chapter 174. Unlock the Seal of Nine-Tails. That won't do. Tsunade quickly calmed down. Unlocking the Seal of Nine-Tails was something that Tsunade would never allow. Hinata could trust Nine-Tails, but it didn't mean that others would trust Nine-Tails. Without the seal, Nine-Tails could come out of Naruto's body at any time. This matter was too important. However, from Hinata's words, Tsunade also roughly understood the power of the combination of Hinata and Naruto. Tsunade sat down again and asked faintly, "Do you have any plans?" Although she asked you, Tsunade was mainly looking at Jinin, hoping that Jinin could come up with a perfect solution to this matter. Hinata looked at Tsunade and said confidently, "Big sister, I have 3 plans." Tsunade sighed and said, "Tell me." Hinata nodded, stretched out a finger and said, "The first plan is for me and Naruto to go to the Rock Village." "No." Before Hinata finished speaking, Tsunade directly said, "Tell me your second plan." Hinata curled her lips and stretched out 2 fingers and said, "The second plan is that our Hyuga family can take out 300 million, become 3 fingers, to hire organizations to assassinate Inoki and his son Kitsuchi." "No." Tsunade refused again and explained in a deep voice. "Itachi Uchiha made it very clear when he came to Shinobu last time. His goal is the Nine-Tails in Naruto's body. Inferring from this, Akatsuki's real goal should be all the Nine-Tails, including the Nine-Tails. Hiring organizations can only accelerate their growth. That's absolutely not possible." Since Tsunade had succeeded the position of Naruto, everything about Shinobu was naturally no secret to her. However, Tsunade and Itachi Uchiha did not have much contact, so she was actually skeptical about Itachi Uchiha. However, according to Jiraiya's investigation, the organization's primary target was the tailed beasts. This was almost certain. Tsunade rubbed his temples and said indifferently, "Tell me about your third plan." "The third plan?" Hinata scratched his face and said hesitantly, "That might take a long time to implement." "Oh." Tsunade's interest was piqued. Hinata's first two plans were simply a direct declaration of war, but since the third plan was not a direct declaration of war, it was necessary to listen to it. Tell me about your third plan, Hinata said shyly. It's just waiting for me to become stronger. Okay, you don't need to say it. Tsunade directly interrupted Hinata's plan and expressed despair. On this matter, I will hold a meeting with the jonin of the village and launch a targeted counterattack against the rock village. Hinata, you have to stay in the village during this time, do you understand? Hinata said dejectedly. I understand. After work in the evening, Hinata was a bit depressed. Although the rock village hasn't launched an action against Hinata yet, this kind of calculation still made Hinata unhappy. I didn't steal your rice. Among the 5 great ninja villages, Anoki of the rock village is a relatively dark one. Although the Reikage showed off his muscles all day long, he only showed off his muscles. Even his brain was full of muscles. In the 5 Kage meeting in the original story, the 4th Reikage told the truth that some of the 5 great ninja villages had hired organizations. Although the Reikage didn't mention names, Anoki didn't deny it on the spot. Anoki said that at that time, the situation of the ninja world had become peaceful, and the relationship between the 5 great ninja villages had gradually eased, unlike before when conflicts and wars broke out. Therefore, the ninja villages that controlled the military power of various countries gradually became a heavy financial burden for the country. Therefore, the country had to reduce the budget of the ninja villages. The land of wind and the land of earth weren't rich, so among the 5 great ninja villages, the sand and the rock were the most seriously cut. The Cloud Village collected ninjutsu at all costs during peacetime to expand their military power. For the sake of the rock village, Anoki had to hire organizations to do things for them. Anoki used the reputation of the rock village to accept some difficult tasks, and then hired the ninjas of the organizations to perform the tasks. In this way, the rock village didn't have to pay anything, but they completed the tasks well, and received a lot of rewards. Including during the legend period, Hinata also saw on the internet that Anoki seemed to have become evil. In fact, Hinata did want to spend a lot of money to hire organizations to assassinate Anoki. This person simply can't stand others. However, Tsunade was right. What if the organizations got a lot of money and caused them to act in advance? For a day, Hinata's head was almost broken, but he still couldn't think of a good way to solve this problem. I have to practice hard. Hinata also felt the pressure. With his current strength, Hinata was helpless against the dust release. And Anoki can also fly. After returning home, Hinata locked himself in the room alone, thinking about what to do. Since he can't solve it by force, he can only rely on his intelligence. Hinata recalled if there was anything similar in his previous life that could be used as a reference. But how can I do it? Hinata actually thought about it. He can only lend the Nine Tails chakra to a few people. But the Sand Village actually knows the truth. The Sand Village was beaten so badly by Shinobu's plan to collapse. Maybe they secretly leaked some information to the Rock Village. It doesn't matter who is the Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Hinata or Naruto. The important thing is that Hinata can pass the Nine Tails chakra to others. Hinata touched his chin. If the Sand Village and the Rock Village really have secret information exchange, then Hinata is not in danger. The danger is the Hyuga clan. It's so troublesome. I shouldn't have done this in the first place. Hinata got up and quickly ran to Hyogo's bedroom and began to knock on the door. After a long time, Hyogo opened the door with a bang and asked with a black face, "Hinata? It's so late. What do you want?" Hinata said anxiously, "Well, father, I have something very important to tell you." "Wait." Hyogo turned and went into the room. After a while, he came out wearing clothes and said lightly, "Let's talk in the study." Hinata said with a slightly apologetic tone, I'm sorry to disturb you and mother." Hyogo was shocked and asked, "Hinata, do you know what we are doing?" Hinata's face was embarrassed. He turned his head and explained with a blushing face, "Well, I know a little. Before, when I went to find the big sister with the horny sage, I saw him and those women." Ahem. Hyogo. Damn Jiraiya, Hinata is only 12 years old. You're tuning in to the Earbook Haven YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.